Well, those visuals don't apply to today. I am up in the mountains in Idlewild, way above Palm Springs, up in the deep country, which we did a show yesterday. The internet was super strong up here. Don't ask me how, but somehow it does. And we're going to do the same thing today with Jackie the Jokeman Martling, an old friend from the ancient days of New York and National Lampoon and MTV To Go magazine and the Stern Show and uh, you know 516 wine and everything else we'll get at 922 wine and the first comedy album that Jackie sent me, which I have never opened. I have kept that album unopened in the hope that someday I will need the money on eBay and sell it. And so far, that day has not come. But it is a collector's item. We're going to show the album back, both sides of my own collection. We have a lot of photos to talk about with Jackie today. His book, The Joke Man, Bow to Stern, which came out in 2017, by the way, is highly recommended. One of the great show business books of all time, where Jackie gets into behind the scenes stuff on comedy, which is what this channel is about. What's Up with Lordbuckly? If you like the Larry Charles book, you're going to love the Joke Man book. It's fantastic. He's also got the Disgustingly Dirty Joke books and other material that we will talk about on the show. I haven't seen Jackie personally, I think, since 1990, but we'll talk about where he has been and what we're going to do about it. But first, we got to sell some crap to pay for the show. Okay, so this thing, Biltong, I don't know if Jackie likes it or not, but I've been addicted to this now since we started the show. This is like the gourmet beef jerky from South Africa, where this guy has taken his entire family by boat with oars. He's got like 5 children who work in this plant that he built in Texas. He's a South African escapee, and they make this gourmet Biltong USA. The guy's name is Anton, and it's a secret South African recipe. Don't ask me. Don't get me started on how he did it. But if you like beef jerky, this is like the filet mignon of beef jerky. He's got all different kinds of flavors. It's so delicious. You can just eat it out of the bag. If you're a fat fuck like I am, this is pure protein. Forget about the carbs. Forget about popcorn. Forget about cheese doodles, which I love greatly. This is pure protein. You can sit and surf the web or watch football with this and lose weight as you're sitting there stuffing your face with this. I like to put it in the microwave for like 5 seconds just to get it a little softer, because the older I get, the less the teeth work any longer. I'm renting teeth from someone else, a dentist in Brooklyn at this time. However, Biltong USA, go to the website, use the secret code. I don't want to give it away because it is top secret. Mark G, you get 10% off. Don't ask me how he does it, but he ships it to your door with like packets of ice and everything else. And he's got other products on there. There's gourmet chocolate. Go to the website, take a look. It's biltongusa.com. The guy's name is Anton. He is the king of all biltong. You may have seen him around. It's fantastic. I came late to the game, but this is my favorite flavor, the Angus. I don't know what part of the cow that comes from, but Bill apparently means tongue, and tongue means tongue, and Bill means ass. So it's ass and tongue together into some sort of product that you can enjoy at home. Biltong USA. Use the secret code. This is a good guy down in Prairie, Texas. He's homeschooling his kids. He's fighting against the man, whoever the man is. The man keeps changing every day, but he's our man here on this show. It's Anton, Biltong USA. Ask for the Angus, and at the end of the show, we'll come back and talk about his other products. So don't go away. That being said, this guy, Jackie, grew up in Long Island. We're going to talk about, because I grew up in Amityville. I went to Amityville High School, which I call the Amityville Horror. They made a movie after it because the guy around the corner decided to kill his entire family because his father wouldn't give him the keys to the car one night. I'm sure Jackie remembers that. Ronnie DeFeo, who went to St. Rose of Lima. He didn't go to Amityville High School when I was there, but he did go to St. Rose of Lima. Anyway, so I could drive up the 110 and hit Jackie at that point in my life, but we didn't know each other. So let's bring Jackie in. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a show business legend. I'm not bullshitting you. Jackie has been everywhere, done everything, film, radio, stand-up, jokes. He is the triple winner of numerous, because some guys just do stand-up and go in the movies, Jackie. They don't even give a shit about stand-up. When you interview them and do shows on them, you talk about Dice and others, they were just using stand-up as a road to get to other places.
The truth of it is, if I could have done that, I probably would have.
Yeah, I know.
But not really. People used to give me a hard time in the beginning. Before I go any further, you win. That was the hippest opening.
Thank you.
To a podcast yet. And so many of them are so horrible. And that not only tried to be hip, it really was hip. And I really enjoyed it. And I love old Hollywood and the movies and everything. And I'm dying to know. All I know is when I met you, I know that I brought you to the Friars Club for lunch. I don't know whether you were a member or whether you wanted to interview me. So we went to the Friars Club. But it was one of my favorite times because it was early on and the world didn't know that I was writing Howard's jokes. Slowly but surely they were finding out. And we sat down and you said, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I write jokes for Howard on the fly. I write lines for him." So what do you mean? And I pulled up the pile of notes from that morning. I had just come to the Friars Club from work.
Yeah.
And you started leafing through the pages. And you said, "This is every fucking funny thing he said today." I said, "Well, not everything, but a lot of it,
It was the bulk of it, Jackie.
You enamored me. I was enamored right away, so I don't even care what kind of hat you wear.
Well, this is a hat-wearing channel. No, I remember that specifically also because Henny Youngman was involved. And Henny was there. Henny later came back to my office at National Lampoon. And sadly, and going through your life, going through your book has triggered memories like you're describing, which I'm sure you're going through the same thing as you get older. In your audiobook, it seems like the audio version of your book, which is what I listened to, then printed out the PDF. The PDF's worth the price of the book, people. If you get the PDF with the book, it's fantastic because you could take Jackie's family from beginning to end. And we'll catch up on this storyline about the Friars Club. But what I wanted to start with, which I am completely enamored with, is that you're the illegitimate great-great-great-grandson of Teddy Roosevelt.
I don't know that.
Right.
But it's so funny because there's a documentary they made about me called Jokeman. And it's on Amazon Prime. And these people from Grand Rapids, Michigan, of all places, I went to Michigan State, but I just happened to meet this guy through a podcast. Everything's about networking. I don't have to tell you that. Yeah. And they said, "Would you come out and screen your documentary here in Grand Rapids?" And they bought me a ticket and paid for my hotel, and they paid me really well. And I was like, this will be fun. And a guy came up to me who I hadn't seen in 58 years. And Mark, I hate throwing around numbers like that because it makes me sad. But he was my dormitory, Snyder Hall at Michigan State. And I sold him one of my books. And he called me 2 days later. The whole first chapter of my book is about the possible relationship I have with Teddy Roosevelt.
Right.
And we finally found some distant DNA and it didn't pan out. But there was too much room along the way for people to jump beds. And this guy, who was my friend from Michigan State, is a member of the Teddy Roosevelt Association. And one of his good friends is one of the people directly in line. He's Theodore Roosevelt's son, Archie, was Tweed Roosevelt's grandfather. So this is the real deal. If this DNA matches up, it's a whole thing. But there's a whole history there. Whether or not
it goes into the book. In the book, you go into the actual how your great-great-great-grandfather ended up being a driver for Teddy Roosevelt.
Well, what happened was when Theodore Roosevelt was being born in 1858, in those days, the fathers just did whatever they wanted, especially Theodore Roosevelt's father was one of the first playboys. And by definition, a playboy was somebody whose family was so rich, they never had to work. They were the second generation that never had to work. All they had to do was play polo and go hunting and play golf and go to the fancy parties. And so Theodore Roosevelt's father was a wild man. You know, he was a really great guy. He started the Museum of Natural History and had a lot to do with the Boy Scouts. So he's a real philanthropist, but he was also a whoremaster, and he was up in Maine. And this is the theory: is he banged this woman, and 20 years later, her son shows up in Oyster Bay, and next thing you know, he's working at Sagamore Hill. Now, if you know anything about rich people, you don't just knock on the door and say, "Hey, can I work for you?"
Right.
I mean, it was a whole inside thing. And not only that,
here's Sagamore Hill, by the way, Jackie. We're showing to the audience right now up in Oyster Bay.
Well, you know, I should have been raised.
You should have been living there. Of course, you ended up with this other family.
But it's so amazing because the way this whole thing came out was really crazy. But my grandmother's youngest brother was Leonard W. Hall, who was Eisenhower's campaign manager and national chairman of the Republican Party. Right. When he was born, he was the 8th kid. He was born in 1900. And Teddy Roosevelt said, "Well, Franklin, what are you going to name your son?" And Ethel Roosevelt, who wound up being Ethel Roosevelt Derby, she married a doctor. She was 8 years old. And she said, "Father, why doesn't he name him after one of your favorite generals?" And one of Theodore Roosevelt's favorite generals was Leonard Wood, General Leonard Wood. So my great uncle was named Leonard Wood Hall. And he wound up, and so Ethel Roosevelt Derby was his godmother, and they wound up being best friends for life. She was best friends with my grandmother, and they led the charge to make Sagamore Hill a national monument.
Which it is now, which it is to this day.
And it's a whole, and he was a wild congressman, and it's so interesting. But by the time we heard this rumor, everybody was dead. You know, I had a very old aunt. She was 93 years old. And in the local paper, in the next town over, Clinton had just got caught with Monica. And they did an editorial. And the woman said, "So Bill Clinton was fooling around with Monica Lewinsky, but, you know, there's always been sex in politics, you know." Okay. And she pointed out a few things, you know, the guy on the boat, whatever his name was. And she said, "No, it was always the rumor that our own Leonard Wood Hall was the illegitimate son of Theodore Roosevelt." Wow. And my cousin Dottie got incensed because Len Hall took care of her and took her to parties in D.C. And she wrote this scathing letter to the Locust Valley leader. And she said, "You know, before I send this, let me talk to Aunt Eleanor, who was 93. And she said, "Aunt Eleanor, is there anything to this rumor that Uncle Len was the illegitimate son of Theodore Roosevelt?" And my aunt went, "Well," and everybody went, "Whoa." And she said, "That wasn't the rumor. The rumor was Len Hall's father was the illegitimate son of Teddy's father."
Oh, I see.
Which made my great-grandfather Theodore Roosevelt's illegitimate half-brother. Now we're jumping through hoops trying to get this printed, but the guy, it's so funny. I could go on about this.
Dude, it's a great story. I want to understand, first of all, two things. What most people don't know is you wanted to be a gymnast, and you were a gymnast.
No, I didn't. I wasn't. Everybody thinks I was so great because they see you do a flip on the floor. And
what's the true story, Jack?
The true story, I was third in Nassau County.
Right, that's a big deal,
in 1965. There were like 4 people in Nassau County in 1965.
Well, you were the only straight one.
Well, the top guy was here, and the guy that came in second was here, and I was down here, but I was good.
Right.
You know, and by the weirdest quirk, a guy in my hometown's father shot my gymnastic routine with an 8mm wind up movie camera,
right,
and transferred it to VHS. And I have it's ridiculous that I have that on tape.
It's your
unheard of.
Zapruder film, Jackie. It shows.
That's exactly what it is. And a couple
Okay.
of things I did in that routine that
Right.
day. There were a few things in there that you put in your routine, and sometimes you hit them, but sometimes you don't. And I hit them all in that routine. So I looked
Did
a
you
lot
ever
better
have?
than I was.
Did you ever have Nadia Comaneci on the Stern Show?
No. I mean, I fucked her.
Obviously, well, that's in the book. You'll talk about that a little later. But why Michigan? Why did you go to Michigan, Jackie?
The true story.
Yeah.
Everybody, I went to a high school, Oyster Bay High School.
Right.
Was a great high school. It was
famous.
Very
it's a very
small,
famous high school, though.
Very small, and everybody
wealthy.
was very smart, very wealthy. And here it is, 11th grade. And everybody's like, oh, I'm going here and I'm going to interview here. And I think I'm going to apply here. And it dawned on me that I haven't had this conversation with my father. I haven't had any conversation with my father in 20 years.
Right.
So I sent for this thing called the Barron's book.
Oh, I remember that book. Yeah.
A big, thick book. And I started leafing through it.
Wow.
And I saw Syracuse and Rutgers and Penn State and I got to Michigan State. I swear to God, Mark, I don't have to make this shit up. Under Michigan State, in parentheses, it said 40,000. And I said, that's 20,000 girls, man.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
So I sent my application, and I didn't do that well in high school. I had really good math and science, but, I was an idiot with English. But I was well-rounded. I was in a drama club, and I played soccer and gymnasics. So I got accepted to Michigan State, but I got accepted to Michigan State, Penn State, Rutgers, and Syracuse.
Wow.
But the reason, this is a true story.
20,000 girls.
Another reason, probably a more main reason.
Yeah.
Is I was going out with this girl, and I loved her, and she loved me, and she was just really cute, but she was a local yokel, a wonderful girl. But, she was very small town, and I knew I had to get out. I had to escape. I had to get out of the orbit of Oyster Bay, which is a great small town. And Michigan State was far enough away that I wouldn't have to come home on weekends.
Right.
And
a lot of people do that. Yeah, a lot of people use that. But you did come home in between semesters. You came home.
Oh, yeah. But it wasn't like, come home for the weekend. That was unheard of,
Right.
And
so tell me about the band you put together to play these keggers and parties in Michigan. It sounds like Animal House, Jackie.
You know what? I got so mad when that movie came out because I said, that's my life. God damn it. When I was in 7th grade, I knew that this friend of mine that I've known, he's my best friend. I've known him since 1953 at kindergarten. I said to him one day,
here's a shot of your band, the Sonics, by the way. Maybe you can explain who these people are, Jackie.
The guy on the left, that's Chris Spates. And in 7th grade, in 9th grade, I said, hey, you play the guitar? And he said, yeah. I said, that's cool. Because I'm thinking that's a great way. I was already fairly popular, but what a great way to meet chicks. Which if you ask 100 people why they started playing guitar, 99 will say to meet girls, and the other one's lying.
Even Robbie Robertson. Even Clapton. You could ask the greatest. Keith Richards, a guy. We got to get to the Keith Richards story and Les Paul. You want to talk about guitars? I don't know how you end up in the orbit of Les Paul later on in the story. We'll get to that, but
it's so fun. So
you go to Michigan.
I said to this guy, Chris Bates, I said, why don't you teach me how to play guitar? He said, hey, all I got to do is teach you 4 chords and we can have a band and meet chicks and have a great time. So we played all through high school. Okay. And then when I came home in the summers, we had a band in the summers. And it's funny because one of the crap holes we played was a place where Billy Joel's earliest band played. This place called the Encore Lounge. It was so low, we would play, and then while we were on break, they had a go-go dancer, but she was almost, a full bikini. But the guy would come up, and he wouldn't tell us to get on stage. He'd come up and point at his watch, meaning take a break, because when we took a break, she'd dance and people would drink. Things never changed.
Wow.
And then towards the end of college, we played all through college. I played with some very, very horrible guys, and but we had so much fun, and we got so many women,
Jackie,
But
that
then,
story about the Fender Rhodes, I mean, bringing it back from Long Island to Michigan
oh,
with your mother in the back seat, and
that is just
tell that story. That's worth the price of the book.
Believable story. That is not a believable story.
It's not believable, but I believe it because it's so fucking crazy, Jackie.
I was a guitar player in this band, and we were okay. By the fourth year, my band, the Pillowcase, was doing okay, and we played all the fraternity parties, and they loved us because we were wild. I mean, we were wild, and we get so drunk and go crazy. And if they weren't dancing, I'd go out and yank them on the dance floor. We were just fun. And there's so many. Oh, I have so many disgusting things, but they're great stories. And I was always homesick for New York. 7 years in Michigan. Wow. I never said I was from Michigan. I was, it took me an extra year to graduate. And I stayed out there an extra 2 years. Well, I'm playing in a band and getting laid. We're in the bubble of a college,
big college
community.
Town. Yeah.
Not only that, but the dormitory I was in had a liberal arts college within the dormitory. So it was I mean, I wouldn't have been.
You could have lived there the rest of your life, Jackie. You could have never. There's people who do.
Absolutely.
There's people who do that, bro.
When I went there was people, hanging out in the grill that had graduated 3 years ago. I mean, it was wonderful.
What did you want to do with that engineering degree when you first got the idea to get an engineering degree?
My father had gone to school in Alabama for a year. He took engineering, and I had no intention ever. The only reason I took engineering is because I knew if I didn't take a really difficult major, I'd fuck up and I'd drink, so I took a really difficult major.
Didn't your dad get these political road jobs in Suffolk County? Did he? What was he doing? Yeah.
He was, by the time the end of the 50s, he was deputy superintendent of highways.
Okay.
And his boss, who was also from our little hometown, his boss, this is such trivia, his boss was Thomas Pynchon, whose son.
Oh my God, that's insane.
His son is Thomas Pynchon, the author.
The novelist,
The world famous novelist. And my father was deputy superintendent of highways. And so, and it was Nassau County was the 49th state. It was solid Republican, and they could do whatever they want, and everybody had jobs. We went to the World Series every September. Like we're little kids. We didn't know that everybody didn't go to the World Series. It's September, and I guess we're going to the World Series.
Somebody saw the Beatles at Shea Stadium in your crew, right?
Yeah, the biggest idiot in my group, but not me. He went out with a rich girl, and she had tickets. But it was, and my father was, he started drinking way too much. But it was a field day. The whole thing was a stupid field day. And then I'm out in Michigan, and we're playing, and I need an excuse to go home. And I said, guys, I didn't play piano well. I said, but what really round out our band, since Dale, the organ player, left, we should have an electric piano in the band. And somehow they bought that. Maybe they wanted a couple months away from me. So I came out to Long Island, Oyster Bay, on the premise that I was going to work until I made enough money to buy a Fender Rhodes piano and go back.
Which everybody had, just to tell the people at home, every band in that time period had a Fender Rhodes 88 electric piano, right, Jackie?
That were beautiful. And everybody was selling them. And everybody was, they a lot of Passover.
Yeah.
And so I worked for a couple of months. And of course, I drank all the money away.
No.
And then it's time to go back. So I said to this girl that I worked with, this ugly woman, I said, listen, you want to loan me money? I promise I'll pay you back. I got to buy an electric piano or else I'm going to get killed. She lent me the money. I found a used electric piano in Queens. I got it. And the drummer in my band, who was 6'6", had a Fender Mustang, which is a tiny car. So when he
A,
sat
a Ford
in the
Mustang with a fender in the back, not a
oh
Fender
oh
Mustang.
oh oh,
No,
I meant a
that's
Ford
funny though.
Mustang.
That's a Fender
Right.
Mustang was another model that Henry Ford put out. It was a failure at the time, like the
So
Edsel, but the Fender
so
Mustang was good.
that's good. So Carl's seat would be all the way back, so you barely fit in there. And I talked him into driving me back to Michigan State in this Ford Mustang. And my mother just announces, you had to know her. My mother was a piece of work. They all loved her. My house was always packed. She loved everybody except me.
Right.
And you
Well,
know, me and
she
her.
thought you were a spoiled brat, apparently.
Yeah, which I certainly wasn't.
Okay.
We were always at war, but she was so smart, so funny. A lot of people thought she was the smartest woman in town. And she was just you know, she was a lot of fun. She just announces, I'm going to Michigan with you.
Your own mother.
Yeah, my mother. I said, all right. And Carl, my mother's coming to Michigan with us. So I figured what I'm going to do.
Who is this? Is this your grandmother here, Jackie?
That is my grandmother, whose father is the one that worked at Sagamore Hill. So she kind of was half raised in Sagamore Hill. That's me.
Yeah.
And that's my brother. And this is my cousin. His father and my father were brothers. And his mother and my mother were sisters.
Weird. Oh, so it's double honeymooners.
Double, and it was the honeymooners. They were up, Len and Janet were upstairs.
Yeah.
And Dot and John were downstairs, and I was the first kid. So for the first 2 years of my life, I had 4 parents.
That's three too many, Jackie.
Yeah, talk about getting spoiled. So that was great fun. And Mom Martling was, you know, just an amazing character.
So you put this Fender Rhodes in the back of the Mustang, and you stuff your mother in there somehow.
She wants to go, so I said, all right, Ma, I'll get you some booze, and we'll take a ride to Michigan.
Right.
And Route 80 was not done yet. So we took the Pennsylvania Turnpike. It was a hell ride, but fun.
Yeah.
So I got a lemonade pitcher, one of those ones with the, you know, like a big
like the Kool-Aid pitcher.
A Kool-Aid pitcher.
Yeah.
It was plastic.
Yeah.
On the premise that we can't stop every time we have to pee, or else we'll never get there.
You'll never get there.
I got my mother a bottle of rye and bucket of ice. And she's in the back on the right because Carl was taking up the whole left side of the back seat. So she's crammed into the back right. And we're drinking beer and having the time of a lifetime. And she's back there drinking her rye. And I mean, we're having a party. She was great fun. So I have to pee. And I relived it. I got up on my knees. So I'm up on my knees on the front right in the death seat. And I'm looking at my mother. I'm kneeling and I'm looking at her, and I pee into this wide open jug or whatever you call it.
Pitcher.
And then I turn back around and open the window, and I'm supposed to be a mechanical engineer. And
that's what I was wondering. Yeah.
So I figure I'm going to reach out and turn it over to dump out the pee.
Good idea.
And I reached out the window and turned it over, and the entire pitcher of pee came flying back in the window and hit my mother square in the face.
Oh my God.
And she screamed, and Carl looks in the rearview mirror and sees my mother dripping of urine.
Oh my God.
And so thank God there were no cars, because he was laughing and freaking out. And I swear to you, I have no idea what happened after that. We were loaded. I'm sure we pulled over and cleaned her up or whatever, but I'm sure also we kept drinking. You know, but that.
Well,
when I first told that story to the Stern people.
Yeah.
When I first started on the show, you know, we're in a room and we're writing, back when me and Fred and Howard wrote all day, and we're writing, and I told that story. You know, and I'm sure you've had friends. You tell a story and they look at each other and they roll their eyes like, here he goes. And every morning, somebody tell a story and somebody else tell a story. And then I would always trump them. I hate using that word, but I would always trump them.
It's a good word.
And they thought I was making shit up. And after about 6 months on the show, it dawned on Howard, holy shit, he's not making this up. These are true
No,
stories.
these stories in the book are fantastic. I mean, in 1976, you somehow get up at Catch a Rising Star, spur of the moment, I presume, Jackie, right?
Well,
Or was this a spinoff of your
no,
quasi Off Our Rockers band? Because it seemed to have comedy in the band.
I guess you could call it when when I escaped from Michigan State.
Yeah.
After 7 years, my buddy kidnapped me and took me out to Denver, and we were working construction for about 6 months. And I was like, I can't do this. I just cannot do it. And the guy who had taught me guitar came through and he said, hey, what are you doing? I said, I don't know, but I can't do it. He said, well, let's go back to New York and start a band. I said, all right, we can have a band, but we got to play my original songs. You know, when any you write, we got to play original songs. We got to fuck around and tell jokes and be crazy. He said, fine. We came back and we practiced a while and we got a bunch of gigs. So I already was telling jokes in between. You know, Mark, it's so funny. When you don't know anything, you don't know anything.
You don't know anything.
I didn't know anything about
also.
comedy.
Right.
I know anything about. I didn't know that comedians do the same act to a different audience every night.
Right.
So we had the same audience in the bars every week. So we had to come up with new jokes every week. So that's how I amassed this ridiculous trough of jokes. I mean, I already knew the jokes when we started. It got crazy. And then one day I saw in the Times, it said, oh, there's this place, Catch a Rising Star, and you can get up for 5 minutes and try and perform. And I didn't go with any intention of doing anything.
Right.
My brother-in-law, one night, my sister's boyfriend and me went in and got there really early, sat right in the front. And it was audition night. And people are going up and, you know, everybody got 5 minutes. 5 minutes is so long.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
When nobody's laughing. And these people are going up and dying, one after the other. And all these tourists and everybody, they're dying to laugh.
Yeah.
And at one point, somebody, after a minute or two, they bailed out because nobody was laughing and left the stage. And the master of ceremony, the MC, was in the front at the bar. And so there's an empty stage. And this drunken girl climbed on stage, told a very bad joke, very drunkenly, and the audience went nuts because they were so hungry to laugh.
So hungry to laugh,
Right.
Yeah.
So the MC comes back in. It was David Say, who became a great friend of mine. He patted her on the head and said, all right, get out of here. And next thing, then there's X amount more of auditioners. And then he leaves the stage again. Leaves the room again. And somebody else bails out. And my friend Archie said, get up there.
Wow.
What do I care? We had a bunch of beers. So I got up on stage.
Wow.
And told what I thought was the oldest, stalest joke in the book. To me, if you grew up in New York, or if you grew up in the United States, of course you've heard all these jokes.
Yeah, of course.
The truth being that nobody has heard them. And the people who have forgotten them. So I got up and told this joke. And I'm in the middle of a joke, and David Say came back from the bar, and he came through the velvet curtain, and he saw me, but he didn't stop me. And I told the joke, and it was a filthy joke, and the place exploded. And then when we were leaving at the end, we walked out, and David said to me, hey, that was a really great joke. You ever think about doing this? I said, come on, you heard that joke. He said, I never heard that joke.
Oh, he never heard
what
it.
What do you mean you heard never? I'm thinking, wait a minute. I swear to God, it was a light bulb minute. If the host, a comedian who's been on the Tonight Show at Catch a Rising Star, hasn't heard that joke, maybe there's other people that haven't heard that joke. And it wound up being nobody's heard the jokes, and the people who have don't know, and they didn't. And that was the light bulb moment for me. And then my band, a couple of years later, broke up. And I wasn't going to go through I don't know if you've ever been in a band, but it's like having 2, 3, 4 wives. It's impossible.
Oh, yeah.
I said, all right, so I'll just go up on stage and tell my stupid jokes. And if anything happens, fine. And otherwise, I'll try and come up with another idea.
Well, the invention of the dial-a-joke thing leads you to Rick Dees indirectly, right, Jackie, in L.A.?
Well, what happened was, I get too boring, but I wound up at this place called Richard M. Dixon's White House Inn, where Eddie Murphy was,
Oh,
and Dave
right,
Hawthorne,
right.
and
Yeah.
Bob Nelson, all these people. But
Explain. I just to explain at home. Richard M. Dixon was a guy who did Nixon as a impersonator.
And not he actually had surgery on his face
Oh,
to make him look like Nixon, which is just unbelievable.
oh
And we
my
had so
God.
much fun, but he wouldn't pay us.
Right.
He'd only pay us $5 and a few beers. And we got fed up with this, and we found a bar in Huntington and said, listen, can we tell some jokes? And what's the slow night? Let us tell jokes, and you can sell drinks, and we'll take the door. And they said, okay. And this was in January of 1979. And I said to myself, we have no money.
Right.
We're not well known enough to get interviewed. We have no way of getting the word out. And it dawned on me, I'll just get a phone line, and I'll put jokes on the phone line. And in between the jokes, I'll advertise the show, which is the basis of radio, the basis of television, a little bit of content, a little bit like you. You did an advertisement, right, and now we're doing the content.
Yeah.
And I got the bright idea, use your finger, which was so funny.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
And it was such a burgeoning territory, my hometown, that the only numbers that they had started with 9. And I said, oh boy. So I had to find something that started with 9. So I started looking and asking. I said, what about 9463? She said, it's open. I said, I'll take it. And so 516-921 was use your finger. And it's still going to this day. If you dial
it's astounding. It's astounding.
9463, just because I'm an idiot. But this guy,
but
Rick
I mean,
Dees,
you came up with promotions for yourself, almost like falling into them. Like it's completely the promotions you come up with, looking back in retrospect, is one guy trying to wing it. Sending the albums to everyone, Jackie. The joke lines.
If you don't have any money, I work at the end of my band. These guys fell in love with me, and they thought I had a lot of energy, and asked me to work in this recording studio. And to show you how I stick to people's feet like gum, one of the owners of that studio is currently married to my sister. Okay.
Wow. Wow.
50 years later. So,
wow.
So I learned just enough at the studio that anybody can have a record. All you need is some songs or some content and a few pictures and a few dollars, and you send it to a place and they stamp it and put out and I got $100 from 15 different people.
That's a good idea.
Mark, I'm telling you, when I went to Port Authority and picked up my first 1,000 albums, it was like, this must be what it feels like when you have quadruplets. I mean, I was floating, and the album was horrible.
Hold on. Let's see if we can see a cover of the album, James. Somewhere there's a photo of the first Jackie Martling record, what he's referring to here, and there's a backside, which I think has 922 wine on it.
Everything did. Everything
right.
did.
Okay, we'll take a look at that if we can find that photo. So let's take a look. Explain what the cover of this album is, Jackie.
When I first started doing comedy, that's my real 8th grade class picture.
Wow.
And I put that picture out. My office was my mother's attic. Right. That's where I decided I had no money, so I threw everything out of the attic and made it an office. And I put up the 8th grade picture and wrote under it, "What did you expect?" And my friends are like, "What does that mean?" I said, "That's going to be the name of my first comedy album." And they're like, "Yeah, right." And in the front, I am giving the finger. I am.
Let's see. I think we got a close up of that photo somewhere. There's a photo. This is the finger here. Yes, look at the finger, Jackie.
And people say, well, it's not that obvious. And I say, if I had made it any more obvious, that picture would not exist. I couldn't go like this. So it was so subtle.
That is pretty subtle, bro.
And it was so fun. And then, I made that
album. Let me see the backside of the album. Let's see. Here's the backside of it. What do you, I remember this.
This is the second or third printing. The first version of it was all black and white.
Right.
It looked horrible.
Wait, I thought I had an original copy. What am I stuck with here?
No, you're stuck with probably the third.
Oh, right.
The first one did not have 922 wine at the top.
Right.
This picture in the lower left, there was a bar where we were doing a show, and there was a girl that loved the band and loved me. So that's you can't see, but that's a cartoon of me playing the guitar. And she drew cartoons of me and Nelson and Murphy and Bartlett and everybody like this. And I'm standing at the bar of this club, at this bar. And if you move the camera 6 feet to the right, the bartender was Rick Messina. Do you know him?
From Poco, right?
No, Rick
Messina, the comedy, the owner of, co-owner of Catch?
No, well, he co-owner of These Psychology, but Tim Allen's manager, Drew Carey's manager.
Right.
He made a gazillion dollars.
I met him at the Just for Laughs festival with Rick Newman, and Newman was still owner of Catch. And Newman stupidly hired my retarded brother to answer the phone in the office, and my retarded brother ran up $3,000 in sex phone calls. And he said, Mark, I had to fire him. I go, why did you hire him? And he said, I thought the apple couldn't fall that far from the tree. I go, Rick, what are you, a psycho?
Yeah, it does.
Anyway, it's just a Rick Newman story. But
I loved him. And he loves my stories about bombing. I went up, I think, 3 or 4 times at Catch. And he was a fellow friar. He's dead now, but he was a good friend. And he loved the stories of how horrible I did up there.
Well, speaking of horrible, you came up with this, or somebody came up with it and gave it to you from Peru, who's copying cocaine in Peru, the 2-bagger joke that opens the door for you to Rodney World.
That, the way this all happened, it really is not believable. It really isn't. My big fat friend, JR, the guy that yanked me out of Michigan State, and we went to Denver together and worked construction. He was a spoiled rich kid, but he was so much fun. His name was Jackie, but he changed it to JR because there wasn't room in our hometown for 2 Jackies.
That's funny.
And he's a great guy. And so I was trying to be a comic, and I'm living at my dead grandmother's house. She passed away. So me and my girlfriend moved into my grandmother's house at the end of 1978. And my friend Richie Minervini, who I started out the show at Cinnamon in Huntington with the first comedy show anywhere on Long Island, the first true comedy show. And that's what I made 922 Wine for, etc. But when we were just starting, you bullshit each other because you want to build yourself up. And he came into my grandmother's house one night and said, man, I can't believe it. I was at Dangerfield tonight and I killed. And Rodney loved me. And he told me he was going to put me on TV, blah, blah, blah. And I was so jealous. And I sat down, and any joke of mine that I could think of that I could put into Rodney into Rodney talk, and I typed them all out. And somewhere along the line, my friend JR was in Peru buying cocaine, selling cocaine. And he called me at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning one night. And the phone rang, which was so odd because my grandmother's friends were all dead. And he was one of the few people who had the number. He said, Chief, you got to hear this. I got this great joke. And I think he kept me on the phone long enough so my drunken
tell us the joke because everyone's going to know this joke once you tell it.
So he says, yeah, this guy, Tennessee Bob, he's unbelievable. He told me a story about this girl. She was a Tennessee 2-bagger. That's a girl that's so ugly. You not only got to put a bag over her head, you got to put a bag over your own head in case her bag rips.
It's a great joke, Jackie. It's a great joke.
Funniest. Now, the thing is that I guess that that line had been going around the South for decades.
For years. Yeah, decades.
But you know that comedy, right, it's putting the right joke in the right place at the right time. After studying comedy, you discover everything, So anybody's like, oh, this is new. There's very little that's new. So that was one of the jokes in the 6 page. So I wrote 6 pages for Rodney.
Tell us when the phone rang and it was Rodney. Tell us how. I just wanted to get the feeling. How freaking excited were you as a person?
It's 1978. I mean, we hardly haven't done anything yet, And Richie came in. I said, here, give these to your friend Rodney. He said, oh, man, I didn't meet him. I was there, but he didn't even show up. And I'm like, you motherfucker. I spent days typing this up. On my mother, he took a matchbook out of his pocket and said, but I was there, and it had Dangerfields and had the street address. And I already had the envelope with Rodney, and I just wrote in the street address and put it in the mail because I had nothing to lose.
Well, apparently it worked, Jackie.
2 days later, me and Lois are sitting having lunch, and the phone rings. Swear to God. And everybody's dead. Who has this phone number?
Right.
I said, hello? Hello. Who's this? It's Rodney. And I said, Rodney, who? He said, oh, I knew you were
That's
funny.
That's funny.
I knew you were funny. I knew you were fucking funny. You know, some jokes here. This two-bag is funniest fucking thing. Come to Westbury, and I'll buy a couple of these jokes. Come on, I'll be on the guest. So I show up at Westbury with my girlfriend.
This is the Westbury Music Fair for people who are not from back east.
Beautiful, beautiful place in the round.
Did the stage turn around with him on it?
Well, I don't know if it
that
rotated.
Night?
He was on it.
Right. Because I've seen acts where it turns, right?
Yeah, it literally turns, but with a comedian, that's not necessary.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't remember specifically. But I walk in. My girlfriend's 10 years younger. I'm already 30, and she's like 20 and really pretty. And I'm wearing blue jeans with holes in them, and I got a ponytail down the middle of my back. I walk in and said, what the fuck? What the hell? She's so pretty. Hey, want a piece of fruit? She's gorgeous. What the fucking blue jeans? Funny jokes here. But, him scattered all over the place.
He's scattered from the coke probably, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know how much he was into the coke at that point, but probably. But he was high and drunk, and he was just so fun. And we went out.
He takes you on the road, Jackie. I mean, you must have shit your pants when that phone call came. The road.
No, well, that there was time. I was sending him jokes, and he's very picky. He took very few of the jokes, but I was always, hey, boss, take me with you. Take me on the road. We'll have so much fun. I'm a riot that, but I'm pushing and pushing. And finally one day, and it's so funny, the guy in my band, my best friend, who him and the other guy kind of threw me out of the band, he, for whatever reason, he was with me in my mother's attic when the phone rang. And I answered the phone. Hey, yeah, all right, I'll take you to fucking Vegas. Jesus Christ, shut the fuck up. I'll take it. You know what? Hey, I'm going for a week to Lauderdale with my daughter. You want to go? Yeah, come to Lauderdale and Vegas. We'll go. It's all on me, blah, blah, blah. And like you said, my head was exploding.
Wow.
And my friend is like looking at me like thinks I'm making this up. And so, I went and picked up his daughter.
You're like his valet there. I mean, but he's giving you such an opportunity. Like
it was. I'm still thinking of things that happened that are just not believable. I just told a story to my friend in Grand Rapids.
Well, let me ask something. You're sitting in the back of the club. You were actually Joe Ancis for a while.
I was absolutely Joe Ancis.
Explain to the audience who Joe Ancis is. They may not understand it.
Everybody has people in their gang. Well, people that are funny. There's always people in the gang. There's somebody who's really, really funny, but they don't have the nerve to go on stage or have no desire to go on stage. It's usually the people on stage are the people that got something to prove to themselves or something. Yeah. So Joe Ancis and Rodney were good friends since they were selling aluminum siding.
They were shinglemen. They were shinglemen, Jackie.
They would wear an American flag.
Yeah.
And go and tell whoever that they're veterans and sell them, siding and get like a 50% deposit. And the family would never see them again.
This was they would go to Jersey and do this and then come back to New York.
Right. There was like 10 years that Rodney had dropped out of comedy. So him and Joe are tight buddies.
Right.
And there was something that Joe yelled every time Rodney was doing his show. And when he was in Las Vegas, that was my job, to sit in the back. And when there was like a 2-second lull, I'd yell, "What do you do for a living?" And of course, the people in the audience turned like,
wow,
like I was heckling Rodney Dangerfield. He said,
wow,
"I'll get guys for your sister." And then he'd say, "Why don't you come in the bathroom? I'll show you how small you really are." And then people kind of caught on. That was part of it. And I hate to say it, but I felt so cool.
That is cool, bro. That is really cool. Yeah, you were in on it.
And we had so much fun, and he was such a maniac. And
Well, no, this was before Miller Lite. The commercials were coming
no,
out.
this was just when they
As
had kicked in. He was right in the
when the
middle
Miller
of
Lite commercials had kicked in, which he said
And-
made him famous.
right.
He had
every
done
Miller
50.
Lite
He had done
commercial.
50 Tonight shows already, but I think
yeah.
Miller Lite put him on the map.
Well, if you do the Tonight Show, he killed on the Tonight Show, but that's every 3 or 4 months. He was on Dean Martin, but that was once a week for a couple of years. When you're in a national commercial, and every commercial had 2 or 3 or 4 different huge sports stars, and Rodney. And so he was on constantly. And this was right in the middle of making Caddyshack. They hadn't even come out yet.
Right.
And he said, it's unbelievable. You know, I broke my balls for so long on Carson and Dean Martin and everything. And now everybody knows me. They all fucking know me because they've all seen all those commercials. And he said that was the key to him being a recognizable figure, even though he had been funny forever. But it was and in the middle of the week, he actually flew from Las Vegas to Los Angeles to do the reaction shots for Caddyshack.
For Caddyshack, yeah.
He said, you know that movie, how it looks like we're doing coke on every scene? That's because we were doing coke before every scene.
Yeah, I mean, the director said that Rodney, he thought everything was live. He didn't know that there was, setups and lighting and everything. He just went and did his lines.
It was just fucking crazy.
Now, how do you go from that with Rodney? I mean, you could have stayed with Rodney as a writer.
No. Everybody would submit jokes to Rodney, but he never had a writer per se,
quote unquote.
He would. People would give him different jokes, and sometimes you take a joke and say, "Oh, let me switch 2 words," and say, "All right, that's mine now." He's a finagler like everybody.
Well, when you heard him do the 2-bagger, you must have shit your pants.
Oh,
that was like the greatest moment of your life, Jackie.
And he brought down the house.
Yeah.
In Westbury Music Fair that
Westbury
night.
Music Fair, yeah.
And then when he did it on the Tonight Show, it's
oh,
God. I mean, I didn't write the joke. I didn't claim to, but that's the whole. If you go through all the old books and everything, you find half of his act. Nothing against him. That's just that's the art of comedy writing. And
now, how does Stern find you in this whole world of crazy
had
crap?
Nothing to do with Rodney whatsoever.
Right, exactly. You sent him the albums. Jackie.
Rodney called me in 1978. I went to Las Vegas with him in 1980. Yeah. I put out my first album in 1979, the next one in 1980, the next one in 1981. So by 1982, I had 3 comedy albums, one worse than the other. But there were 3 LPs. Nobody was doing that. Like Bill Cosby he was signed with a record company, and so was Bob Newhart, and so was Robert Klein. But the average comedian didn't have a record. So what a fucking calling card. Nobody had to know that I created them. And I was working.
I think that's how I got one.
I probably found out that you were
at Lampoon. I think that's how we
I'm sure I sent them over, like I'm sending them around. And in 1982, in August of 82, I was working at Garvin's Laugh-In, which was a pretty popular comedy club in Washington, D.C. And the owner of the club, Harry Montecruso, says, "Hey, Jackie, there's this crazy guy on the radio that just got fired. He used to do broadcasts in his underwear here on Friday mornings, and he's a nut. And he just got fired, but he's moving to NBC in New York. You really should look him up." So me being me, I got home, and I never heard of Howard Stern, or I never.
He was in D.C. Nobody knew him when he was in D.C.
But I didn't listen to the radio. I listened to 1010 Wins, or I listened to CBS for the oldies. So just blindly, I sent 3 albums with matching cassettes, and a couple months later,
I have the cassettes. I also have the cassettes.
I see you got the whole package.
I got the whole package. Yeah.
My future ex-wife called me and said, "Hey, that disc jockey Howard Stern wants you to call him." And I called up, and they got him right on the phone. He said, "Hey, we listened to your records. You know every joke. You're a pistol. Why don't you come in?" And I said, "Okay." So I drove into Manhattan, which I'm working at Governor's Comedy Shop in
That's
Levittown on
insane.
Long
That's
Island.
insane.
All of a sudden I'm going to, I don't know if anything's going to come of this, but who cared? You're parking, all of a sudden I'm in NBC, and there's Letterman, and there's, Johnny Carson and whoever.
Jackie, explain the power of the Stern Show to people who don't know by telling the story of you getting a flat tire on the LIE. I think that may explain the power of the show, Jackie.
When I went in there, it was me and Howard and Fred and Robin, and that was the exact crew the last day I was on in 2001. But
wow.
All of a sudden, we're on New York, and then all of a sudden we went to mornings, and then we expanded to Philadelphia and Washington, D.C., and slowly but surely we're adding, I always say he's adding stations, and the thing is growing like a fungus, all right? And one morning I'm on my way to work. It must have been like the mid-90s. We're already just killing. And but I was still working at Chuckles. So it had been mid-90s. I worked at this comedy club on Long Island, and I was late. And I was driving in, and it's funny when you tell a story because people say that's impossible, because now the entrance ramp of the Cross Island Parkway is solid cement and walls, so it's not a believable story. But back then, there was a curb and grass, and as I'm going over where the overpass is for the Cross Island Expressway, I get a flat tire. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And it's like 20 to 6. And between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock, it's unbelievable how the traffic just, expands. It's ridiculous. So I get over. Somehow I managed to go over the entrance ramp and pull onto the grass. I'm like, oh, fuck. Oh, Jesus Christ. I just had a killer show, sold a bunch of records. I'm feeling like a superstar. And here I am. And I'm like, oh, fuck. So this, I don't know what year it was, but I already had a car phone, one of those.
Oh, wow.
Big, stupid.
Wow.
So, and I called Gary and I said, listen, man, I'm stuck. I'm right off the LIE, right at the entrance where the entrance comes in from the Cross Island. He said, oh, well, we'll just go on there. Let me put you on. So I get on the phone with Howard. He's like, where are you? You're always late. I was never late. I never missed it. He'd always make it out like I was a bad guy. I was as loyal as anybody could possibly be.
Right,
I was a Nazi. He's like, Jesus Christ. Where? I said, right where the Cross Island Parkway feeds into the LIE. I'm on the grass and I'm stuck because I for whatever reason, I didn't have the right tire change, or I don't know what it was, but I'm freaking out. And no sooner did I get done explaining that to him, the cars are jumping the curb and coming off the entrance ramp and pulling over, and they jumped out like a fucking NASCAR race, like a pit stop, and they held me back, opened the thing, changed the fucking tire, and then put me back in the car, and then they stood there and blocked traffic so I could pull back on. It was not fucking believable. Okay. And so when we're going to make the movie, the writers, Ivan Reitman and Len Bloom.
Yeah.
We go around, we're all sitting there. All right, tell us how you met Howard and tell us maybe an anecdote. So we're going around, and when it got to me, I said, I'm Jackie Martling. I sent Howard my albums a couple of years ago, and I stuck to them. I was just there sitting there on the air with them, and at the end of the first day, he said, wow, you're fun. Come back next week. And I was there one day a week for free for 3 years. I mean, wow. I paid my fucking dues.
Wow.
So I say, and I'm Jackie, and then I told that story.
Right.
And Len Bloom was like, he came over to me after the meeting. He said, do you have any idea how well that is going to play in a movie?
Yeah.
And I said, listen, you don't really know enough. about this show yet. I said that story is all about the power of Howard.
Of Stern, yeah.
But it's too much about Jackie.
Oh, I got you. I got you.
And it never saw the light of day.
Well, I want to get into that movie for a second, Jackie, because I have some questions. We're talking about private parts. There is an incident where you end up not in the movie, but I'm saying in real life, where you end up in your underwear in a hot tub or a bathtub with Jessica Hahn. And you get into a lot of trouble with Nancy because of this particular thing that almost breaks up your marriage. As I recall. Let me just finish 1 second. Hold on.
All right.
Is that the scene that is in Private Parts taken from your life?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
All the guys, Billy West, me, Gary, Fred, John, we're all in Howard's suite. It was the next day was the Philadelphia funeral for John DeBella. We had just, after years, finally went to #1 in Philadelphia and was a cause celebre. And Howard got Jessica Hahn, the suite right next to him. And he called up and said, "Come on, Jessica, come on over. Why don't you come over and take a bath in my suite?" And it's Jessica, she's she wasn't a whore, but she knew how to get publicity. So she said, all right. She came over in a pretty sheer nightgown.
Oh, sheer. I don't think sheer is the right word.
And went to the back and drew a bath, and she was taking a bath. And she was like, "Howard, come on back." And he's like, "I can't go back there." So at some point, Stuttering John walked back there. We all walked back there to see her in the bathtub. And we threw Stuttering John in the bathtub. And when he got out, the water was so black from filth that he had to drain the tub and start over. And then,
but how does this end up in Private Parts?
So she says, "Howard, come on." And he said, "I can't go get in the bathtub with Jessica. It'll cost me my marriage." And I'm drunk.
Yeah.
And I said, "You know what? Fuck it. I'll go. In my mind, I'm going to leave on my underwear and my blue jeans." So where's the foul? To me, where's the foul? I'm just being a company guy. So we go in the back, and me and Howard get in the bathtub with naked Jessica Hahn. We were probably in there, honest to God, Mark, 30 seconds or a minute. I mean, it was just, but of course it never dawned on me. And the next morning on the air, the whole world's listening because we went to #1 in Philadelphia. Wow. He made it sound like there was a full-scale orgy, like it was unbelievable. And Nancy wasn't listening, so she got the whole story secondhand from her quote-unquote friends.
You mean some of her yentas?
Yeah, like, oh boy. And then, I called home and I thought, she was out of her fucking mind. And I'm trying to explain. I had my blue jeans and my underwear on. I thought I had my bases covered, which I didn't.
Right.
And she was out of her mind. And the crazy thing being was 2 days later, we were leaving.
Is this her, Jackie?
Yeah, sure. That's not Nancy. That's Jessica. So 2 days later, we were leaving to go to Europe for 2 weeks.
Oh,
and she's, "I'm not going to fucking Europe, you asshole." And she chased me around the house. I thought she was going to kill me. And so I called her. We had a marriage therapist. I called her. I said, "What the fuck am I going to do?" She said, "Jackie, just do anything you can to get her on that plane. And once you're on the plane, you're off to Europe and it'll all melt away." And I talked Nancy into getting on the plane.
This is where you did get on the plane. You did go to Italy. You did at that point.
So then they
recouped the marriage.
They wrote the movie and made it about Howard and Fred being in the bathtub.
I know.
With a famous actress.
Right.
But that was in real life. That was me. It was
right. It's so funny. I remember. Here's a shot of you and Howard getting massages in this photo. Where is this going on?
That's the Channel 9 show. We did a show for Channel 9. Which was as wild as a good day.
That was crazy, Jackie.
Oh boy. Yeah.
That Channel 9 show was nuts.
Yeah. The stories, just unbelievable. Just unbelievable. And I said to Howard, I said, how could I almost lost my marriage over that fucking bathtub? And you don't put me in the movie in the bathtub? He said, your wife would have killed you. and that's how he
Well,
wrote it off.
it might be true. It might be true. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, but yeah,
But
well, you know,
the movie holds up even to. I saw it a number of years ago. It still holds up, Jackie.
it's still fun, still
It
funny.
is. I mean, it's a good-looking movie. She's a real director. It's a real script, and surprisingly, he plays himself really well.
You know, I wrote twice as much for my autobiography as I needed.
Yeah.
So then I had to pick and choose what to put in and what not to put in. And I will never know for the life of me why I didn't put in the chapter. I had a chapter called Very Private Parts.
Wow.
And it told the story.
That's what is missing from the book, that whole chapter.
But it's unbelievable. They started doing the movie, and me and Fred were not going to be in the movie. Our characters were not going to exist.
Wow.
Because we did so much to contribute. There was no way Howard was going to make a movie where people saw me feeding them jokes. So all of a sudden,
well, that I could see. That I could see.
So all of a sudden, that one by one, the people around the studio are wearing hats with a big H. And I finally figured out these people were going one by one to get interviewed by the producers as they're assembling the movie. And I'm like, Mark, we were in a foxhole.
Right.
You know, I was sitting 2 feet from Fred, 2 feet from Howard. You know, I mean, best friends. We're working our ass off, and I'm not in the fucking movie. And it was a killer. And then they threw that movie away. And Howard came to me and said, listen, we threw away the script. We were working on a movie, but we threw it away. I didn't like it because they weren't including all of my guys.
Right.
Which, you know, is patently absurd because he makes all the calls.
Yeah.
So that's when we got together and had the meeting with Ivan Reitman and Len Bloom and blah, blah, blah. So we go and we have a meeting. I don't think I put any of this in the book. And it just.
No, it's not. It's not in the book.
So we have a table read. Now, when you would do a table read for a movie, a TV show, or anything like that, every single person that's in the script is at that table, even if you have one line, right?
Right.
So I'm sitting there and we're going through the whole script, and we have the match game scene. Okay.
Oh, right.
And the match game scene is where it was blank Willow.
Oh.
And we all wrote pussy. So I'm sitting there, and I'm waiting. I'm a comedian, and I'm waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. So of course I'm saying, you know what? I got to fuck around. I got to break balls. So it gets to me, and Gene Rayguns, or whoever he was, I said, Jackie the Jokeman, what do you have? And I wrote it really sloppy. And I said, I have pussy, Howard. In fact, I wrote it kind of sloppy. I guess I have sloppy pussy.
No.
And everybody went crazy, right? Nobody says a word, Mark. Not a fucking word. It's 6 months later, and we're doing the scene. And it's a big deal. I mean, they got somebody that was me and somebody that was Fred to sit there so they could adjust the lights. You know, it's a big time movie.
You got stand-ins.
And then I sit there and I look at this army of people, and I said, I can't believe they're letting all the listeners come and watch us make the movie. And they said, no, you asshole, they're all working. There was like 60 people. This guy's holding the wire, and this guy's holding the wire for the guy holding the wire and everything. And so I'm like, what do I do? You know, the clock is ticking and it's costing so much money. Do I have the balls to just say my ad lib? Or do I go by what the script said? Because nobody said a word to me. So I'm like, I better go by the script. So we do the take, and I say, I have pussy. I got pussy, Howard, and then, cut. And the Danny Goldberg, the assistant director, comes over, and he didn't even say it out. He whispered in my ear, Jackie, remember what you said at the table read? Why don't you say that? So, all right. What do you have? Oh, pussy. In fact, as I wrote sloppy, I got sloppy pussy, Howard, which was probably the funniest line in the fucking movie.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely.
And everybody went nuts. And that was just the tale of not only not getting credit, but nobody had any idea. And half the people I tell that story to think I'm making it up.
Well, let me explain why you're not making it up. Because when we started this broadcast, what Jackie was referring to was me and him at the Friars Club. And I would listen at National Lampoon to the show, to the actual live radio show. And then I would meet Jackie at the Friars Club. And this initial meeting with Jackie, this is when Jackie shows me the writing from the show that I just listened to. Let me explain this because people may not understand the depth and breadth of how much Jackie contributed to the show. I'm at the Friars Club, and I'd been to the Friars Club, many times. We used to get massages there when we were hungover by that old black guy. I forget his name. There's a picture of me wearing some of the swag that we were selling. This is when I had the MTV magazine. But in this particular case, I was still at National Lampoon. And when I went to the Friars Club, and Jackie took out these yellow legal pads, I'll never forget this. And he begins to show me every single thing I have just heard.
It wasn't only, it was 8x10 white paper.
Yeah, right.
Written with
a black magic
Sharpie,
marker with a Sharpie. And I am reading what I just heard come out of Howard Stern's mouth for 2 hours on the radio. And I was completely gobsmacked that this guy sitting with me at the Friars Club had actually written, and Jackie, I'm Emmis. I am gobsmacked that this guy has written in real time, live, on the air, simultaneously, as a live radio show is going on, what I just heard coming out of the mouth and audio microphone of Howard. I don't know what this photo is here, but this is a part of your crew. And at that lunch, and then I invited Jackie to come over to the Lampoon offices, and we, began to do different things, regarding comedy. But I never forgot that time when you showed me the stuff that you had written for Howard. Now I understand the physics.
And what was really great is you're a comedy guy, so you got the whole how spontaneous it had to be. It was quick. Like
it was insane, Jackie.
Anthony Camilla says that in the documentary about, it's got to move fast because if it's not immediate, it doesn't work.
Well, let me explain the physics of it, because Jackie is on the floor in this tight little studio, and he's literally flipping these cards over onto a little mini vertical table that Howard can see with his own eyes.
Let me set the scene. Howard's sitting there, and in front of him is the typical easel that every disc jockey has, and he had like an open full loose leaf and another open loose leaf, but they were separated. So in between, he could look across at Robin Quivers, who was behind glass 10 feet away. Yeah. And on the left side, the loose leaf is open. And on the right side of the loose leaf it's an 8x10 space. And I was writing, and actually I was sitting there, but actually flipping the notes in real time right there.
And he was seamless at it. To his credit, Jackie, he never skipped a beat.
The fact that nobody had any idea.
No idea.
And nobody else could have done. Nobody else but me and him. I mean, the truth is, we were the fucking Marx Brothers. We were Abbott and Costello.
Yeah, no.
I didn't say anything. And that's
and
why
Fred was doing the sound effects, and Fred was doing what he was doing.
And by me doing that, when I set that up, that made it so Fred had a way to get notes to Howard too. So Fred would write stuff, and I'd pass that to him.
Right.
And I just had so much to do with his rise.
Was Robin like a black Ed McMahon at that point?
Yeah, people say, "Oh, what'd she do?" But that's like saying, "What did Bud Abbott do?"
Yeah.
She's there. She's a timing device. She was very important. You know, she wasn't there to compete with Howard. She was just it was like the way the whole thing came together. It was just like Dorothy going to Oz. He assembled us. He got Fred, then he got Robin, then he got me, then he got Gary, then he got John.
Well, I read about, I don't know if it was in your book or it was in Howard's book. He talks about how he invented Fartman in DC, but I remember Gary calling me, Jackie, and saying, we want that Fartman record from National Lampoon that we had as a cut on a Lampoon album that Roger Bumpus had done in a live Lampoon show, and it was on the record as Fartman. And I sent it to Gary, and the next thing I know, there's Howard Stern flying over the MTV Awards as Fartman. Do you know the genesis or origin of
You're,
Fartman?
you're preaching to the choir. At one
Thank you.
point, you know what's so funny? For some reason, I have the notes right here. I don't know why. I don't know why I have them.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Look at this. It says, can you see that? It says, first Fartman, 8/1/89.
There it is, 89.
I don't know.
That's when I was at
Howard's
Lampoon.
idea, or whether Fred said, hey, it wasn't created for the MTV Awards. It was just like,
of course not. Of
it
course
was
not.
coming up with just something weird, because we're always looking for wacky shit to do.
I never forgot the day Gary called me at Lampoon asking for the Fartman, not the album. The album was National Lampoon's Radio Dinner, I think. I forget, one of the National Lampoon records. And there was a cut. It was an 88 or 87 album where Roger Bumpus, who was an actor who was in our live stage shows, did a character, an announcer voice, as Fartman.
And, and I'm sure that's exactly. And
that's what happened.
People have very short memories. Look, this is the first stuff he said. I am Fartman. My magnificent cheeks will huff and puff and blast a moist fart that will leave a mist on all that is evil. I blow butt burps for the red, white, and blue, for democracy, freedom, and ratings. It was so, and it went on for pages and we just did this on the fly.
Yeah.
Like when he was Teddy Kennedy or when he was Elvis. And that's why, I wound up off the show. I was like, you're making gazillions. And I really I don't want more credit. I don't want my name in lights. But for Christ's sakes, I wasn't bitter about it. I mean, if you have a job.
Hold on, that's at the end. Let's just get into the meat and potato of the show. You have to show up and be funny at freaking 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't know how you did it for that. 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't know how you did it for that long. I would have killed myself or hung myself in a barn. But you had to drive in. I don't know if you got an apartment eventually or whatever, but
eventually, but not till
at the end. You were driving in from Long Island. I don't know how you did that every single morning, because didn't you work full time eventually, 5 days a week, Jackie? Right?
Well, I started in 1983, 1 day a week. In 1986. When we went to mornings, he called me up. I was on the road. He said, listen, I need a price for 2 days a week. And then I went from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, because if you A-B'd it, Mark, he was so much funnier that I'm not pumping myself up. He was funnier the days I was there. Okay.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it.
One of the greatest compliments, somebody told me, I used to live in Washington, D.C., and Howard was so outrageous. He was outrageous and he was funny. But when he moved to New York, he was funny and outrageous. The funny is what led. And if you're making people laugh, you can get away with so much. And that was the whole deal.
Right.
And
let's talk about that, because I have digital copies, which I'm happy to give to you. Digital tapes from 89, 90, 91, absolutely impeccable quality of Dice being on there, Richard Lewis being on there, Gilbert being on there, and recently Kinnison that I just re-listened to. Tell us a little bit of color on these four guys, starting with, let's say, Kinnison and his appearances on the show, Jackie.
He was just a great character. He was a good friend. When I started doing comedy, everybody's breaking their balls to try and, get gigs wherever they can. And there was a guy named Jim Balatzos that used to have I used to book shows in Jersey, but so did he.
Is this a photo of Sam on your show? I don't know if you know this photo. This may have come from your show. I don't know if you could see that, like Sam coming directly into the studio. We may have a couple of photos of Sam in there.
I don't know who's standing in the back, but there's lots of photos of Sam with me and Robin and Nancy and Howard and all that.
Right, yeah.
He became a good friend. So, but this guy, Jim Balatzos, booked gigs around Jersey. And it was so funny. This is a little long, but he finally got to where he's doing well enough that he could hire a couple guys to work for him and set up the speakers and the sound system. So I go to work for him. And while these guys are setting up the stuff, one guy's going, "Ow, ow!" The other guy's going, leper, you're a leper. And I'm like, well, these guys got Tourette's. What the fuck is going on, right? And then one night I came in and met the group at the Improv. We were going across the other side of Jersey, and I got in the van, and here's this little troll.
Wow.
That's not mean. He was a little troll
No.
with his beret on, and he says, Jackie, this is Sam. He just came from Los Angeles, and I'm going to work with him a little bit. I'm going to see how it goes over here. And so we start drinking. So, of course, by the time we get to the other side of Jersey, you know, we're drinking and laughing. We're good friends.
Oh, here's Sam. Yeah, he looks a little fucked up here.
Yeah, and with the sisters, and he was fucking both of them.
Both of them. Jackie, come on.
So we go to the other side of Jersey, and Palazzo says, all right, Jackie, you're hosting, but save a bunch of your stuff, because I don't know how it's going to work with Sam. So save it so you can go on afterwards. So I don't know anything about anything. Here is this long raincoat, you know, the long hair and a beret. And I introduce him, and he goes up, and he started off. It's so funny, things you can remember so clearly.
Well, what about the Dice Kinnison feuds? Were they real?
No, hold on.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He paced back and forth like a tiger.
This is in Jersey, or?
Yeah, in middle of nowhere. Remember this face. You're gonna know this face. Remember this face, because I live in hell. Oh! And he yelled at that audience for half an hour, 40 minutes.
Wow.
And when I came back up on stage, they looked like one of those pictures from the old days where the people have the 3D glasses on, you know, like the commercial, you know, the whatever commercial, the sound commercial. So we get drunk and we're going, and we had a wonderful, wonderful time. Yeah, you're all right, man, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like 3 years later, and one day he walks into the Stern show. And he says, what are you doing here, man? I said, I'm working. He said, wow, I didn't know, you know. And he wound up, and after like 10 minutes, he said to Howard, he said, everybody's so afraid of you, man. You're charming. I can still remember that word coming out of Kinnison. You're charming.
Well, the Dice one must have been easier because Dice was more regional and local to you guys. Well, it would seem that Dice would get along better with your crew.
You know, Dice was such a character. By the time he came on, he was at the point where he had his, he had Downtown Ronnie and Hot Tub Johnny and Kenny, Club Soda Kenny. And he was all caught up in his bubble, but he was great. He was funny. Yeah. And then him and Sam going at it was, you know,
some of the funniest cuts I've ever heard. I mean,
but they all know it's theater. Right.
Right.
They knew it was theater, but it was fun and it was funny. And it was
Gilbert seemed to be on there the most from what I remember, because Gilbert lived in Manhattan, so he was easier to get, I guess.
He would not come in the studio. I mean, he wouldn't come in the radio station unless Gary had breakfast for him.
Oh, he was so cheap.
Unless Gary was
Jackie, he was so cheap. He was so cheap.
I got to know him very well, but
so did I, bro. So did I.
Sam was so crazy that most people, this would be lost on them, but not on you. We're sitting there, and it's 6:15 in the morning. I mean, it's very early. We're barely getting started, and all of a sudden, boom! The studio door opens, and in walks Sam Kinnison, Pat McCormick.
Oh my God!
Jack Riley from the old Newhart show, and Chuck McCann.
Oh, this must have been the Madison Square Garden show to raise money for Lenny's mother.
All coked up and fucking fun. I don't know if they were there for, I think.
Yeah, because he brought him out on stage. I was there that night, and he brought out Chuck McCann. And they were out of their minds, and it was like, I'm like, I got Comedy's Mount Rushmore standing behind me. It was just, and there was no way to handle him. I don't know if it was good radio. Right, yeah.
Insane, you know.
Do you remember when the girl stole, somehow Gilbert gave this girl a diamond ring and she stole it and went back to Russia? It was kind of that dial a date where he finally got a girlfriend, Gilbert, and it was an urging by Howard to give her some jewelry. and the girl stole the jewelry and went back to Russia. I don't know if you remember this.
No, I would, if that happened, that was probably after I was gone, because I would remember
I don't
that.
think so. I think it was during your tenure. I think
You
so.
think so?
But you knew Gilbert as well as I did. How cheap was
Yeah,
Gilbert Gottfried?
you know, and it was unreal. And I got to know him better and better and better, because
Yeah.
I kept telling him, every time he came on, I told him 5 jokes he hadn't heard before, and he just
Right.
loved me for that, you know.
Did he call
But
you in the middle of the night saying you had to fuck one or two of these fattest actresses in the world and you had to choose one or the other? He would say, like,
no,
Oprah
no.
Winfrey at her heaviest weight versus Roseanne Barr in a potato sack covered with jelly, but you got to choose one or the other.
We didn't have a phone relationship. You know, we did a TV show together in the early 90s. We got to know each other better and better. And, you know, occasionally I would write something and go over and give it to Gilbert. And when Gilbert delivers one of my lines, it's like I died and went to heaven.
That's fantastic. You know? That's fantastic.
It was great, you know.
Take a look at this thing I found from MTV Magazine. This is a thing where you came into my office and I interviewed you. We had a segment in MTV Magazine called 20 Questions With. And this is the one, I dug this up out of the archives yesterday. And
wow.
This is you laying on the floor. I don't know why you're on the floor in my office. And I'm interviewing you, asking you 20 bizarre questions, and your answers are completely hysterical. I don't know.
I would love to see that. Have you got that in readable form?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to send it to you. I'll email it to you after the show. I have a scanned copy of it. You would love this, Jackie.
Well, you sent one of the emails you sent me. I didn't see it because it didn't pop up. It takes a while for AOL to pop up a picture, and then I saw that, but I couldn't read it. So you
we'll send you a cleaner one. I can send you a cleaner one. Yeah,
I mean,
this was very, very funny. That's when you came up to the office. Now, after the Friars Club situation, Henny Youngman came up to my office, and this is really bizarre. I'll tell you this because you'll love this. Henny Youngman said to me, you know, Mark, if you remember this will be fucking great. His wife was like on life support. She was dying. She was at the end of her life. And he came up to my office and he said, Mark, I'm not doing Henny Youngman, but he said, Mark, I've made my living by saying, take my wife, please. And at this point, I wish God would. And he almost brought me to tears, Jackie. It was so profound.
Yeah, that's, you know, tough situation. You know,
wow.
He had a rough, you know, did you know his grandson, Larry?
Yes, I did.
His grandson, Larry, who was a huge heroin addict. And Honey was trying to take care of my first lunch at the Friars Club ever, long before I was a member. You know, I had 516-922 wine, and Henny had the joke line that he did for, you know, for New York City, the actual dial joke. So he invited me to lunch at the Friars Club. Just great. And he said, listen, I know you have that joke line. I need something for my grandson. I want to make it so he can make money too. And I said, Henny, I don't make any money from that. I just do that for promotion. Yeah. It's been costing me money for years
to run it.
But we had a great lunch, and you know, it was so Henny.
Yeah.
And, you know, he would have the Friars Club page him, but it was him requesting.
Dude, we don't get me started with this guy. I mean, he was always there. Anytime you went to the Friars Club, mooching off of the buffet. You know, Rodney used to have us as Lampoon editors in the back booth at Dangerfield. He saved us that booth so we could sit there. And I'll tell you something, I wasn't exposed to stand-up comedy at all until I saw Rodney in his own club. Like you talked about in the book, Bellavacqua was still running the club, and Joe Ansis yelling out.
Do you know he's still alive?
Who, Bellavacqua?
Tony Bellavacqua is 90 years old.
Oh,
and he's
my God.
Still trying to sell a movie. He's like,
let me tell you something. I saw Rodney go down into the men's room because his niece was taking his dressing room because she was singing. He could only go into the men's room. Some woman was putting $100 in coins into the payphone to make a long distance call right outside the men's room. And he sticks his arm out at the last minute as she's getting connected to her party on the West Coast. And he pushes the receiver down and she starts screaming at him, "You son of a bitch." and he opens up the door and he goes, "You want to come in and fight? Let's go, lady. Come on, here's my friends." I mean, this was after him doing his set, Jackie.
Yeah, just a pretty unreal situation. He just liked being outrageous. He, like Bill Murray, walks around and does crazy things. And Rodney walked around and did crazy things.
Do you remember, speaking about crazy things, I don't know if this has anything to do with Miller Lite, but somehow you, me, and Gilbert were the judges of the Miller Lite comedy contest in New York City. Do you remember this at all?
I
How
don't.
the hell did we get this gig? You're the one who you got me and Gilbert and you to be the judges.
It was orchestrated by K-Rock. It was probably a K-Rock comedy riot or something like that.
But it was for Miller Lite. It was called the Miller Lite Comedy Contest.
They were huge sponsors. I'm sure they were huge sponsors. They would use me because they get so much airplay.
Right.
And
you're the one who was in charge. You got me and Gilbert to do it. And the three of us voted for the one guy after we saw these hacks. You, me, and Gilbert all agreed that the guy who was the winner was a guy who was the winner, and that guy was an unknown named Ray Romano.
Absolutely. That was a K-Rock comedy riot.
Okay.
The year before Ray, Ray did the comedy riot and he won. And Rory Rosegarden, who was my manager for a while, saw Ray at the comedy riot and said, "I want to be a manager." And they developed that show. And like the next year, Kevin, what's his name? Kevin James. He won the comedy riot the next year. And Jeff, whatever his face, he said, "Hey, I want to be your manager." That was it was like shooting rats in a trap to go get the best guy,
Yeah, I mean, that was a fun night. And what also seemed like a fun night in your book is I don't even know how to explain this. You and Les Paul and Keith Richards somehow have a comedy collision on stage somehow.
Now that is the night that I met Les Paul. It was his 85th birthday. And Carrie...
Just to explain to people at home, Les Paul invented the Les Paul guitar. People may not know this, Jackie, and was a brilliant guitar player himself. And he made all these incredible records in the 50s, playing guitar, instrumental records.
Way ahead of his time.
Way ahead of his time.
And everybody fawned over him. They all loved him.
Yeah.
When I met him, he was 85. Okay. And there's a woman named Carrie Ash who was married to Sam Ash, who was the grandson, the whole Ash empire.
Sam Ash Music Store is a music store in New York for people who don't know.
Well, it was actually national for a long time.
Yeah.
So there's a guy who was a publicity guy who loved the Stern Show. He's like, "Jackie, you and Fred got to come see Les Paul. He would love you. You love him. He's great." And I would never go. And one night, Carrie Ash called me up and said, "All right, Jackie, you're going to see fucking Les tonight. The Rolling Stones are going to be there. It's his 85th birthday, and I'm not taking no for an answer. I'm coming with the limo, and I'll drag you in." So me and Nancy get in the limo, and we go with Carrie and her boyfriend at the time. And I swear to you, it was, talk about surreal. We're sitting close to the stage against the wall, and Adam is walking Les down the aisle to go on stage. And I hear Les say to Adam, "Jackie the Joke Man's here?" And I'm like, what am I hearing? It turns out Les was 85 years old. Old people don't sleep. So he would lie there and listen to the Stern Show because he's not sleeping. He's hearing the whole thing. And he was such a dirty bird. He loved filthy jokes.
Oh, he loved dirty jokes. Take a look at this picture. This is a picture on the right of Les Paul, some guitar player from the Rolling Stones, and Jackie the Joke Man.
Well, this is that night.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there, and he goes up on stage, and he says, he played his opening song. He said, "So this guy, Jackie the Joke Man's here. Where's Jackie the Joke Man? Come on up." So I walk up on stage, and Les Paul had thinning red hair and thick glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, it was my father. It was one of those serendipitous. I was talking to my father.
Wow.
And he said, "Oh, so you're the dirty joke guy?" I said, "Yeah, I'm so thrilled to be here, meet you." He said, "All right, well, give us one, I said, Les, you don't want to hear one of my jokes. And he goes, yeah. And this is his 85th birthday at the old Iridium. And it was packed. I mean, packed.
But packed with
fans,
a weird group of people, though, right?
Yeah, because his fans are jazz
eclectic.
people,
They're eclectic,
and rock and roll people, and they from all over. But the last thing they were there to hear was dirty jokes, even though Les would be a little off color here and there.
Yeah.
So he says, "Come on, give me one." And I had a couple beers. I was still drinking, and I'm not sure but I told the filthiest fucking joke.
Well, don't tell it here, but
but it brought the house down.
Right,
I looked over at it, and he was like, his ears were pinned back, and he couldn't believe it. He thought that was spectacular, and he hugged me, and I said, "All right, I'm going to go listen." And he said to me, "So tell me, so you work on the Stern Show, and you writing jokes for him?" And I said, "Les, listen, it was so funny because Keith Richards was there with his mother and his stepfather, and it was all done up like that with his hair in braids and the scarf and the whole thing." And Les was saying, "Come on, tell me what happens on the Stern Show." And I said, "Listen, Les, it's your 85th birthday, and these people are here to see you play your music and to celebrate you. Half of them don't even know who the Howard Stern Show is. I'll tell you, why don't you do your show, and we'll all enjoy it. And when you're done with the show, we'll go to the bar.
Okay.
And we'll have a drink. And you know what?
Right.
Maybe Keith Richards will join us. And you know what? Maybe he'll even buy. And in fact, if he has no money, maybe he could use some of the beads from his fucking hair." The place I'm talking about erupted.
Wow.
And then he stood up and I said, "I can't believe I'm fucking with a Rolling Stone." And then he said something to insult me. And I said, "And now a Rolling Stone is fucking with me." And it was ridiculous. And I sat back down.
What a great night.
And he brought me back up, and we were sealed after that. And then we were in the dressing room and drinking beer, and Keith's mother and stepfather and a couple other people were there. And we just hit it off. I'm fun. I get under people's skin pretty quick with the dirty jokes,
Well, I meant to tell the audience about Stump the Jokeman. Was this rigged or was it real? I mean, the radio version of Stump the Jokeman, was Fred helping you or was it legitimate?
No, he had to, because there was a guy from Long Island that used to do a thing called Stump the Band. And people would yell out the name of a rock and roll star or a musician, Bruce Springsteen. And of course, the guy had a Bruce Springsteen song. So he'd play something, usually with a parody of it or something. And at one point, I got the idea, I could do Stump the Comedian, Stump the Joke Man.
Yeah.
I might not even been the joke man yet, Stump the Comedian. And I said to the audience, yell out at the end of my show. I said, yell out a subject, and I'll give you a joke about that subject. And if I can, I'll give you a free album. And somebody would yell, they would yell a subject, but if it was too specific, I would open it up. Like, somebody say garlic. I say, all right, Italian food. To make it a little easier. And I do that. And after 2 weeks on the show, 3 weeks on the show, coming once a week, Howard said, I really love you on here. You had so much energy, but we need a piece of business for you. And I said, well, I do a thing at my shows where people yell out a subject, and I tell them a joke about it. And he says, all right, you know what? We'll do it with 2-line jokes, and we'll call it Stump the Comedians. And maybe you can bring in some of your comedy friends. And so we tried to play it, but everybody that called up, it was a black joke, it was a Jew joke, it was a Polak joke, it was filthy, and none of it was usable. Oh, this is a great comedian story. So I said, well, we'll just give Fred some jokes and he can call in. So Fred would call in from the other room with a voice. You couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. It was either an old Jewish lady or an old Jewish man. Hello, Howard. How are you, Howard? Hi. And all of a sudden, she started telling jokes that were just close enough,
Yeah.
What goes click, click, click? Did I get it? Click, click. Did I get it? I don't know. He said, that's Ray Charles doing Rubik's Cube. And people
That's
are
funny.
driving,
That's funny.
driving off the thing. So at one point, Fred called in and I said, oh, it's Mrs. Flemstein again. So we start doing this, and all of a sudden, Fred is now Mrs. Flemstein.
Good.
Now, when I worked in Florida, there was a very funny comic who's still around named Kelly Rogers. And on Sunday nights, we went nuts because the manager wasn't there and we could do whatever we want. And he used to do a Catskill comedian named Shecky Flemstein. And I thought Flemstein is maybe the funniest Jewish name I've ever heard.
That's a good one.
So fucking funny. So at some point after we're doing Mrs. Flemstein, Robin goes, how did we get the name Mrs. Flemstein? And I said, oh, I came up with that. Oh, right. And they're all like, oh, yeah, like you came up with it. Right. Like Jackie came up with that. So meanwhile, I got Kelly Rogers pissed off at me for stealing the name from him. But they're not giving me credit. They're tearing my asshole apart from both sides, which is
what's great was that Asian American woman who stumped you in the live show. I don't know if I remember the three things that she came up with.
That was the greatest single moment in my entire career.
Wow,
because
Jackie.
It was the Club Soda.
Club Soda, yeah.
Which is the nasty show at midnight, Friday and Saturday at the Just for Laughs Comedy Festivals, 1993. In the green room, Dave Chappelle was in the green room, and he wasn't even Dave Chappelle yet.
Right.
And it was Nick DiPaolo was hosting.
I remember seeing Dave Chappelle open for Gilbert at Caroline's, and he wasn't Dave Chappelle yet.
Very early on. And there was a guy named Roger Rittenhouse who has no right hand. And
that's a stump. He could have stumped the Jokeman.
Right, exactly. And you remember Robert Schimmel?
Of course.
Who was so filthy. And the
so was Bob Saget. Nobody even knows how filthy Bob Saget was.
I think, that, hidden things.
Yeah.
So the producer said, we want you to do Stump the Jokeman. But we each get 22 minutes. So I said, that's a pretty tall order. So I do as many jokes as I can, then I bring up the girls, and it's always an array of girls, and it was just killer. And then Schimmel had to follow me, and the next night they said, "Listen, Bob doesn't want. He doesn't want to follow that free for all." And I don't blame him.
Who could blame him?
The minute you bring in people on stage, it changes the whole.
That's a circus. Right? It's a circus.
So the next night, I got probably 8 girls up there, at least 8. I always wonder if there's any videotape anywhere of this, but this is 1993, so who knows? But it always worked out. There's a short girl, a tall girl, a Jewish girl, an Italian girl, a fat girl, a black girl, an Asian. It's like you picked them out of central casting, but it's just that's the way it worked out. So I go down the line and introduce myself and ask the girls, what's your name? And insult them and say something really disgusting or something silly or really fun. And of course, the Asian girl was the last one in line, and I picked on her pretty heavy. And I said, all right, we're going to do a bunch of guys, then we'll do the girls. So the guys are all standing up and they're asking a joke, and I'm nailing it. And they're asking, I must have nailed 5 or 10 of them. Boom, 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 boom. And the audience is like, this is pretty cool. But of course, the jokes that have been around. So of course I know them. So then I'm doing the girls one after the other, and I'm getting them all. And I'm telling you, the place was so packed, and it was a fever pitch. It's 1 o'clock in the morning.
I've been there. I've been to that thing.
Oh, so it's just insane.
No, I've been to that thing myself.
And I'm on the last girl, and she was Asian, and she asked me her setup, but with like kind of pidgin English.
Yeah.
Like so you could understand her, but it was not that easy. And I get there and she says, what do toilet bowl, anniversary, and clitoris have in common? And my God, I mean, you could almost hear a gasp. And I had no fucking idea, Mark. And I start pacing up and down the stage, insulting her, probably saying Chinese stuff because I'm trying to buy time. And I finally give up, and I go over and I say, all right, what do a toilet bowl, an anniversary, and the clitoris have in common? And she says, men miss them all. And I am telling you, the fucking roof came off the place. I took CDs, gave CDs to each of the girls, waved to the crowd, said thank you, went off stage. Nick DiPaolo came back up on stage, said goodnight, and they were still fucking howling. Still howling. It was the greatest thing
Great
ever.
joke.
And I come off, and what's his name? Charles Jaffe was in the audience in the back.
Oh, Woody Allen's
Woody Allen's
manager.
manager.
Woody
And I
Allen's
come
manager.
walking off, and they say, "Oh, that's Charles Jaffe. He wants to say hello." And he says to me, "Jackie, that was unbelievable. That was magic." He said, "But tell me the truth. That wasn't set up." I said, "No, totally random." He said, "But really, how often do you get girls on stage?" I said, "Charles, they come up every night, and every night it's that random and it's that wild every night." And he said, "I never saw anything like that." Wow. So I'm thinking, Mark, my comedy career is made. I'm off to Hollywood. I never heard from the fuck. Never heard a word. It was like he probably forgot he saw,
He's still dialing 922-WINE, looking for you, bro. Now you were in the Aristocrats, if I remember correctly.
That
who else was on? I think I haven't seen it in years. It came out 20 years ago, but who else is in the Aristocrats?
You'd be pretty hard pressed to name a comedian that wasn't in that movie. And what's really crazy,
I remember Sarah Silverman. I remember Gilbert. You were in it.
Out of the whole list of comedians, I didn't belong in that group. I mean, everybody was head and shoulders more famous and more of a known comedian than me. But it was funny because I had come across that joke. It's too long a story, but Dave.
Yeah, we can't get into it.
We were in Florida. Me, Bob Nelson, and Adam Leslie were in Florida with this guy, Martin Lewis.
Wait. Not Adam Leslie. You know Adam Leslie too?
He would, dear friend.
Oh my God, fucking.
Well, that's a whole nother movie.
That's a whole nother show. We can't get it. Larry Charles and I got into Adam Leslie in a previous
is that
episode.
Right?
Oh, yes. We talked about Adam Leslie quite a bit.
I always wanted to go to either the Bill Maher writer's room or Seinfeld's writer's room. Don't put me in anything, but let me just start some of these conversations because it's so easy to ignite. You say Adam Leslie, a fire goes off, right?
Yeah, the Leslie brothers was his father's act, and I mean, he's a legendary crackhead and a legendary CD stealer. He'd go to Tower Records and rob everything. Adam Leslie,
Mitchell Walters, whole gang.
Yep.
So Adam and Bob Nelson and me are in the car, and Martin Lewis, which is such a funny name, and he's a comic magician.
He's one guy. He's not Martin and Lewis.
Right. No, and he's one guy, and he's a comedy magician from Los Angeles. And he tells us a couple jokes that were the funniest jokes I ever fucking heard. I thought I was going to piss my pants. And that joke became my favorite joke. And then I told it to Dave Hawthorne, who'd been around since 1971. He was actually partners with Billy Crystal in a 3-man group in the very early days at Catch a Rising Star. And Hawthorne said, "Oh, yeah, I know that joke," and he showed me a little thing that I wound up putting in the joke. But I had been telling that joke for so long. And then I discovered this famous joke collector had a 2-book set. And the Aristocrats is the last joke on the last page of the second book. And it was my favorite joke.
Wow.
So when I put out my joke book in 1998, I made the Aristocrats the last joke on the last page of my book.
Right.
Okay. So then all of a sudden, Penn Jillette and Paul Provenza come to my apartment in Manhattan. And they said, "Martling, we're making a movie out of the joke, The Aristocrats. And we have to put you in it because we did a search on the web and we only got 2 hits on the Aristocrats and they were both your website."
That's funny.
I put in the guy's version of the joke from his book and the version of the joke from my book. And that wound up just being, just spectacular. So they came to my apartment and it was the greatest thing. I was sitting at the Directors Guild in Manhattan. They had a screening, and I was sitting next to Joe Franklin. Franklin.
Did you ever do Joe Franklin, by the way?
Oh, he was a dear friend. Yeah, many times.
Okay, all right. I assume so.
So Sarah Silverman, all of a sudden's on the screen, And she says, yeah, when I was starting out,
You banged her, right? Didn't you bang her like in the late 90s?
No, well, please start that rumor. I have always
I'm
loved
trying
her.
to, Jackie. I'm trying to.
Just loved her to pieces. So she says, yeah, and I was doing anything I could to get started. And I was invited to Joe Franklin's office, and she's talking kind of off her cuff. This is in the movie. And she goes, and and I sat on the couch, and Joe sat down with me, and then almost like an afterthought, she said, and he raped me. And the place explodes, but Joe's sitting next to me, and he gasps, and I'm like, Joe, it's a comedy movie. She's fucking around. We had to calm him down.
Wow.
It was spectacular. Oh my God. What a funny,
what a great movie. Thing. What a great joke. I mean,
it's just so ridiculous.
I know you have a dirty joke book, the disgustingly dirty jokes, which was your first book, if I remember.
Well, I had 4 joke books in the early 80s, but the first, that was a Simon and Schuster release.
That was a legitimate book, is what I mean.
Yeah, it sold like 300,000 copies, and I made a lot of money from it. And Howard got so
don't
pissed
say that
off.
on the show. The IRS will come after you.
No,
what is it?
No,
is this the book here, Jackie? This is the cover?
Yes. And Howard did the foreword. Howard did the foreword, but Ratso actually wrote it.
Let me ask something about Ratso, because of course I worked.
He wrote everything, Howard.
No. How does Ratso? You got to help me here, because when we were at Lampoon, we were all Stern fans, except for Ratso, who loved Imus. And Ratso ends up getting the book deal. Explain that to me.
How Ratso wound up in our group, I love him. We had so much fun.
I mean, this guy, he would rag on Howard every day, and we were going, listen, you really got to get into Howard. He's killing us here. And he would go, Imus is 10 times better.
It's so funny. But he got up. We had a big party after that book came out. We had a huge party, and it was a shitload of us. And Ratso got up to make a toast. He said, it's so weird. He said, Jackie writes jokes on the fly to make the funniest radio guy in the world much funnier, and makes a lot of money for doing it. And we're here celebrating him releasing a book full of jokes that he didn't write.
That's funny.
Saying it, and it was absolutely true, but it was so
That's
funny.
Gilbert and I did a book. I don't know if you can see the cover of this. I don't know if I sent you one. I'll mail you one. I have one at home. We went around for a year, Gilbert and I, and we did this for Lampoon. This was the National Lampoon Dirty Joke Book. And it was almost like a competition to find out the dirtiest jokes and ethnic jokes and everything else in here. And this is what we put out. Sold a fortune also, Jack.
Do you have any copies?
I have an extra copy for you at home in Hollywood.
I would
Here's the inside of it. And with Tony Kish, who passed away. He was the Joe Ancis of his era. Tony Kish was a horn player who was not a stand-up, but was the funniest guy in New York in my generation.
He
was Joe
him,
Ancis,
bro. Of him.
He was a legendary dude. I love Tony Kish.
Right.
Love Tony Kish. And he was also grew up in Central Park West. His parents worked on the Manhattan Project. They died of radiation poisoning. But this guy was absolutely true years later, but fantastic horn player. Played with a room full of blues and a bunch of other bands. Great comedy person like Joe Ancis. I'll get you a copy of this. I think I probably have about six left, but I'll mail you one out there to Bayville. You could pay the extra postage when it gets there.
And I'll look and say, see how much crossover. It's so funny. I did a show at the Cape Cod Melody Tent, which was a theater in the round like Westbury Music Fair. And Tony cut it in half, so I worked the half of, but it's still a couple thousand people. And I had a killer show. And then he says, do you like the Everly Brothers? And I said, you got to be kidding. He said, well, they're here tomorrow night. I'll give you a hotel for another night. Why don't you and Nancy stay here and see the Everly Brothers? So I'm all excited because Boy Scout camp, I'm putting money in a jukebox that I didn't have, and the opening act is, there's so much trivia. The opening act for the Everly Brothers was the Kingston Trio.
Oh, weird.
And this guy comes out, he weighed 400 pounds, and he said, I'm the only original member of the Kingston Trio. This is Harry. He's only been with us 38 years. He's, you know, I mean, it was that crazy. And they're playing those songs from your childhood that are so great. And in between songs, he's telling dick jokes.
Wow.
And he's telling a lot of the same jokes that I told on the same stage the night before. And Nancy's going, that's one.
Oh,
that's
she's counting them. She's counting them.
But it was so fucking funny. And it was so great. And meanwhile, I don't know how it wound up, but that night I was with Keith Richards and Les Paul in Les's dressing room. There was a pretty girl there who was doing an article on Les for some magazine or some publication. And this guy was with her. He was actually there. So when he read my book, he couldn't believe I was talking about that night because he had been there.
Wow.
And he is currently in the fucking Kingston Trio.
Oh my God.
He's like 60 years old and he's the child in the group. You know, everybody stays in show business. Nobody.
You know, there's another fat guy. Remember that there was a group called the Association and they had a song, and Along Comes Mary.
Of course.
Which you have to know. And that fat guy, that fat guy told me this story. He comes out of a blackout. And this is the greatest coming out of a blackout story. Comes out of a blackout drunk, and he's in a police motorcade going through a tunnel in a limousine, and it comes out to the middle of Soldier Field in Chicago with 100,000 people, and they go, please welcome the Association who will be singing the national anthem at today's Chicago Bears game. And he just, oh fuck.
Oh, my God. Oh, that's great.
Great coming out of a blackout story, Jackie.
Oh,
how did you end it with Stern? Are you still friends? Are you still close with family? I mean, where is this relationship?
We're not friends. I'm sure if you ask them, he'd say, you know, I got no problem with Jackie. You know,
right.
Because the bottom line is that people want to make so much of it. The bottom line is I had a job, and I asked my boss for a raise, and he didn't want to give me as big a raise as I wanted.
Right.
So I left. I mean,
that's the short version. That's the short version.
You know, but after a couple of months, I was like, this sucks. I mean, I completely left out in my mind how much I enjoyed doing this. I mean, how often do you get to be with 3 or 4 other people in a room for 4 hours and laugh your balls off?
It's like Monty Python or something.
But you know, he was.
You were like Firesign Theater.
But Howard didn't see it as a group. He saw it as it was him, and he didn't need anybody else.
Wow.
And imagine the Wizard of Oz if it was only Dorothy.
In this photo, this is when Robin lost her leg playing softball at Shea Stadium, if I remember correctly. They amputated her left leg.
She was on such a heavy diet that her leg even fell off. You know,
this is not the same. This is not the same one-legged girl you had sex with in college.
No, I'm still looking for her. You know, that's one of those stories that when I told it to the guys, their eyes rolled like, oh boy. And 6 months later, they're like, holy shit, I bet you that's a true story. And it's an absolute true story. Who'd brag about that?
Well, we don't have time for that today, but it's in the book. I just wanted to see what your relationship is and how you, I don't know, how you navigated the getting out of the show and then trying to get back. My original take was you just had a bad lawyer, you know, and he didn't pull I've had the same thing happen to me in show business. So
no, but can't. People try to blame the lawyer. You can't blame the lawyer. You know,
I always do. I always blame my agent. I blame my agent, my lawyer every time.
When people found out the numbers, I'd walked off.
Well, give us a hint of the numbers. Just give us a rough hint.
I walked off 3 other times, and there was one time when I walked off. I was making $300,000, and I wanted to make $400,000, and I'd walked out. And Dominic Barber, the lawyer, calls me up. And
oh my God.
Jack, you got to get on the show. I'll talk to Mel. What's going on? I said, well, Dominic, I'll tell you the truth. They offered me a salesman raise, but I'm making I want to make $400,000. And he almost drove off the road. He says, He says the whole world thinks you're making $2 million and you want $3 million. You're talking about $100,000. He just couldn't believe it. And then the next time, it happened a couple of times, and that's a whole book. What happened?
Yeah, that's a whole separate book of numbers and deals.
But then I had decided, I was so tired, and I knew I couldn't get divorced while I was on the radio, and I knew I had to quit drinking. So it was a combination of a few things. But I had decided that I wanted to make $1 million a year. I wanted to average that.
You got this number stuck in your head, from what I imagined was. You just had that number in your head.
Well, that's what I wanted, and I had decided if I can't get that, I'm going to leave. I had absolutely.
Well, what do you think Howard's getting? How much is Howard getting at this time?
I don't know, but it's staggering. Like
staggering.
100 million or whatever.
I was going to say 100 million. Yeah.
Back when I left. I mean, what I was.
This is 1990s money we're talking about here, late 90s.
Yeah, well, 2001, but that's 25 years ago.
It's 25 years ago money.
And I honestly don't think it had anything to do with the money. I think he was ready to get remarried. He didn't really need somebody, looking behind the curtain at what, I really don't know, but I can't imagine the money was enough to make a difference to him. But meanwhile, the hardest thing, and this, you can comprehend this, I'm sitting to his left, and we're laughing for 5 hours a day. I'm writing shit and saying shit and breaking balls, and we're having the time of our life every day. So
for how many years?
Like, for 15 years,
15 or 18
altogether.
18 years, yeah.
But it was like the Jack Benny decision. It's like, I'm going to sit there and have fun with Jackie, and my mornings are going to be great fun, or am I going to go without him? I don't know what went through his mind, but I don't believe it was the amount of money, and the final offer they made was $650,000, which is a lot of money. And of course, Mel spelled out what it's going to be over the 5 years. I think the last figure was 900.
So there'd be bumps. There would be bumps along the way, right? I mean, it's a 5 year.
657, whatever it was. I was like, no.
Ending up at 9, which was pretty close to your demand of $1 million.
No, well, the last number was going to be 1.2. It was going to be 8,
1.2. Okay.
Right?
Okay.
But I was not trying to price myself out of the ball game. I really wasn't. I thought it was so doable. But, meanwhile, Fred.
Yeah, let me ask you something. What do you think these other people were making? What was Robin making? What was Fred making?
Well, Robin was making millions.
Yeah.
Probably three. But Fred is the heart and soul of that show.
Yeah.
He did everything and created everything. And he was
like a quasi-engineer too.
But he would never, I bet you in 45 years, I love him. I bet in 45 years, he's never said the words, I'd like more. So here's a guy who's been with Howard all these years. Since
DC,
the beginning.
I mean, going back to the original.
Yeah. And the new guy next to him is saying, I want more, which makes me look like such a schmuck.
Yeah.
But, I did the right thing. I really believe people say, oh, you're full of shit. You're crazy.
You're comfortable? You're comfortable with it?
Absolutely. And I still do my jokes, and I still enjoy doing it. And, me and Nancy got divorced, but she lives 2 doors away. And me and my girlfriend double date with Nancy and her new husband. I mean,
you've got a lot of projects. You've got this thing, The Proctor. You've got Once a Week for Life. You got film projects now, Jackie.
Yeah, they're tiny. I'm in this show that's on Amazon Prime called The Better Sister.
Okay.
And I have a tiny role. But my house has a much bigger role, and I made like $1,500, and my house made $30,000.
That's funny.
And Elizabeth Banks.
Didn't you get nominated for something like a best supporting actor in a film festival a couple of years ago?
That is the biggest sham, and it's so funny because it was this guy put out movies. He had a magazine, and he gave himself good reviews in his magazines, and then sold DVDs of his movies that were advertised in the magazine. And I got best supporting actor, and they
bravo.
They gave me a plaque. I swear to God.
I swear, that's great.
on the plaque, it says Jackie Martling, Beast support. They spelled best, BEEST, Beast supporting actor. It was like that, and
That's
it
a
wasn't
classic.
somebody being funny. That's these
No.
are people
I get it.
making the plaque, spelling something wrong. I mean,
What was
low.
in 2007? What was the Pikers sitcom pilot about?
Now that I still got friends that break my balls about that. It was.
Well, I'm not breaking your balls.
We were a hillbilly family.
Come
that
on.
inherited a house, but instead of in Beverly Hills, we inherited a house in a bad neighborhood.
That could be funny.
And it was a
funny
little
idea.
bit funny, but there's nothing funnier than me trying to do a Southern accent.
That's terrible.
And it's probably the only movie that ever got made that isn't on YouTube. That's so funny.
Here's Al Gonzalez. Hold on. We got a former New York policeman saying something here for $10. Jack, I've seen you in Vegas, AC, everywhere. If Howard called tomorrow and the money was right, would you go back?
He's not going to call. And
okay.
I mean, I went back one time with my girlfriend to plug
What is
something.
Jackie's Joke Hunt? What is Jackie's Joke Hunt on Sirius? What is that?
It's no longer for Howard. It's a long story, but I came out. Tim Sabian said to me, "You know what? You really should have a show on Sirius."
Right.
I said I would love that. So he told Howard, and Howard and I met for dinner, and then of course that evolved into Jackie went to Howard begging for a show. That's just how it is. But I had my own show. I had my own show on Howard 101 for 8 years. 8 years. It was called Jackie's Joke Hunt.
Right.
And it was.
Did you say Hunt? Did you say Hunt? Jackie's Joke Hunt, just to be emphatic.
Jackie's Joke Hunt. And we told nonstop dirty jokes.
Right.
For an hour. They repeated it 6 times a week. I had the original cast, the Jersey Boys on.
Wow.
Steve Sharippa, Bobby Slayton, Pat Cooper was on like 5 times.
That's
Sid
great.
Bernstein. You know Sid Bernstein? He booked the Beatles at Shea Stadium.
That same Sid Bernstein? He's alive?
He loved me, and he told 2 Jewish jokes. No, not now. This is, this is 10 years,
Okay.
But he loved me. The greatest Sid Bernstein story.
Well, let me ask something about Red Fox. Forget about Sid Bernstein for a second.
Okay.
Is he one of your cultural icons from those party laugh records?
I had every
You had
Red
them all.
Fox album.
Okay, yeah.
And I knew most of the jokes I already knew from, I just absorbed this always. Yeah. And it's really funny because I had this joke about a little old lady going into a butcher shop. And then I had another joke about a little old lady going to a butcher shop. So I put them together like a medley.
Right.
And then one day I'm listening to a Red Fox album, and he had put the same 2 jokes together like I did. And I said, you know what? I guess I know what I'm doing, which is so ridiculous.
Oh, wow.
2 little old ladies. And then I did a movie with them.
I didn't know that. No, I had no idea.
Dice, not a movie. It was
Hold on for a second. Hold on. Here's Brad Pitless for 5. Hey, Jackie, did Grandpa Al Lewis really shit his pants in the FCC rally?
No, you're mixing up 2 stories.
Okay, thank you. Go on.
The first time he came on
this guy's giving us 10 memberships here. I got to read this because this is a big deal. This guy's giving away 10 free memberships to the channels. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you.
Are these guys heckling, or does that mean they're enjoying it?
No, they're enjoying it. They're giving stuff away. They're having such a good time. This is
great.
Yeah, no, they want to be part of the system.
So now I forget what were we talking about?
You were talking about something, and I wanted to ask you about.
So Red Fox.
Red Fox movie you were in.
I get invited to do the Red
Black
Fox
Beverly,
movie.
The Black Beverly Hillbillies or something called the Pikers.
No, that was the Pikers. But the Red Fox did a show called Red Fox's Dirty, Dirty Jokes. And he hosted it. Dice Clay says that's what catapulted him into fame, that somebody saw that, and that's what got him going. It was Robert Schimmel was in it.
Right.
Dice Clay was in it.
Right. Oh, yes.
The girl that was Lenny Bruce's last girlfriend before he died was in it. Naldo Ray was in it. And, and it was so fun and so ridiculous. And when I went backstage, Red Fox said to me, I was like the new kid on the block because I had Dirty Joke albums. And he says, yeah, Jackie Martling, I heard of you. I heard of you in your album. I heard of you. And I have the MP3 of Red Fox saying, now, let's have a big round. Jackie Jokeman, the inventor of Dial a Dirty Joke, which is my favorite. It's
wow, what
fucking
a
Red
great
Fox.
line. Put that at the
Red
beginning
Fox.
of the dial 9221.
I played that to death. I just love it.
I think this might be a little earlier in the show because we did get to some stories later on in the show. But let me ask something. Did you go? Is this true that you went over to Kuwait and Iraq to do some USO work?
Colin Quinn, everybody was going to Iraq to entertain the soldiers. And I wanted to go so bad because I knew that what's more American, what's more of a taste of home than a good dick joke. Yeah. And I could not get across the street. Nobody didn't want me because I was dirty. And I'm like, these guys are over there.
That's all they want is dirty.
Up.
Right.
They're getting blown up and I can't tell them a dirty joke. So a friend of mine that's the president of Sony Pictures Classics, Tom Bernard.
Oh, I know who that is. Yeah.
He was friends with JD. I forget his name, but he's an actor. Yeah. And he told Lieutenant Dan, Gary Sinise, he said, listen, Jackie the Joke Man really wants to go to Iraq or he wants to go on one of those tours. So Gary Sinise called this woman who had a thing called Stars for Stripes in Nashville. And she said, oh, I'll take a look. Come on. So I said, I'm booked there next month. So I went down and did my show. And she said, they are going to love you. They will fucking love you. And so I got booked and I went with a guy named Bo Bice, who was the runner-up to Carrie Underwood in America's Got Talent. So it was Bo and his band and me. And we were there for, I think we did 12 shows in 10 days at Camp Liberty and Camp Freedom. And we did a couple shows where it was just me and Bo. And we rode down the river in a helicopter wearing a flak jacket like in Platoon.
Wow.
And, and then we spent a night in one of Saddam's palaces. It was.
Do you think Saddam would have appreciated your dick jokes at the end?
Well, how could he not?
Right. Because I understood that he followed a lot of American pop culture.
I don't know if that's true, but I'm sure. I don't care who everybody likes. I had a guy come up to me.
Hold on. Here's a guy. Maybe you can answer this one. Richard Minervini is a buddy of mine.
Me and him are the guys that started the show at that restaurant. The very
Did
first
you ever play the
show.
East Side Comedy Club, Jackie?
The show that we did in Huntington at this bar called Cinnamon evolved into the East Side Comedy Club.
Okay.
I wasn't a partner in it. I had no money, but me and Richie have been friends for 40 or 50 years, and I worked there so many times. Are you kidding? It was great. So,
what happened with your music album? I always wanted to know about Happy Endings. You're the only music album you've ever put out, Jack.
And that took me, I wrote all these songs in the 70s. I got my heart broken and everything. And they're all long stories, but I was.
Hold on.
I was on my way. I was on my way into Manhattan, and I'll never forget because I was driving past Leaf Rack City on the expressway, and I was talking to my friend. I won't say her name, but I was talking to a dear friend of mine who I still love. She's just a great, great gal, and I called up because I knew it was going to be an hour before I got to my apartment, and she lived in Las Vegas, so I knew that I had time to talk. And I called up and I got her answering machine. And meanwhile, I've got my pipe loaded with pot and I'm driving along and I'm lighting the pipe and I'm smoking pot. And I call this girl, I get her answering machine and say, well, it's a shame. We could have talked, blah, blah, blah. Well, at any rate, I'm smoking pot. I got my dick out and I'm thinking about you. And I hung up. And it went through my head. I said, I'm smoking pot. I got my dick out. I'm thinking about you. And all of a sudden I'm singing it to myself. I'm driving along. I'm singing a song.
Oh, here's the album cover.
Right. So I got to be friends with the Les Paul band. You know, I'd go up and tell jokes. So slowly but surely, I'd talk to them. And finally, I'd said to the guitar player, listen, does it annoy you guys when I come up there and tell jokes? He said, no, you had so much energy. We love it. And then a couple of times later, I said, hey, do you smoke pot? He said, what do you mean do I smoke pot? So I started bringing in my homegrown pot, and they all loved my homegrown pot.
By the way, do you still do the 420 Twitter joke of the day?
No, I stopped doing that, but I did that for
a long time, 15
right? Years. Oh,
yeah. At 420 every day, Jackie used to have a joke of the day on Twitter.
Filthy joke.
Dirty.
And then, so at any rate, so I'm on my way and I'm driving along. So I have a mini. Remember those mini cassette players with the little tiny.
I still have them.
I started and I wrote, I'm smoking pot. I got my dick out. I'm thinking about you. So I record this and I get home to my apartment and I put the micro cassette on and put my iPhone on record video. So all of a sudden I'm smoking pot. I got my dick out, but I'm standing there smoking a joint, recording this little piece of video. This is 20 minutes after, a half hour after I come up with the original concept. And I called my friend that was the lead guitar player of Les Paul's band, Frank Vignola, one of the great guitar players in the world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I said, Frank, I just wrote either the world's greatest song or the world's worst song. I'm going to send you an MP3. Don't get mad at me. And I sent it to him. And he called me up. He said, that's the funniest fucking thing I've ever heard. We got to record it. We all got together and we recorded the song and we were peeing our pants, making it up as I go along. And he said, this is so much fun. Do you have any other songs? I said, I got a shitload of songs I wrote in the 70s. So we came out here in my living room and recorded the album. When it gets really quiet, I swear to you, you can hear crickets.
Wow.
You know, a comedian's nightmare. And everybody just loves that song. I don't know if you know the song I'm talking about, but I'll send it to you and you'll pee. Listen, I know
please send it to me. No. It's perfectly fine. I just want to know how people can find your stuff and how they could find you and how they could find your books and how they can find your merch. That's more important to me.
Anything you want is on jokeland.com. JOKELAND.com. There's links to my book and to the thing I'm on Amazon Prime, links to, click-throughs to get tickets to anything I got. I answer every email I ever get. My email is jokeland@AOL.com. People say, oh, you don't return. I do. Sometimes I get 20 emails. Some days I get none. But I love it because all of a sudden I'll get an email. This is your friend from college. I live in Iowa now. Wow, I can't believe blah, blah, blah. So I love that. And people love I got 2 dirty joke books and my autobiography.
The autobiography is definitely worth it, folks. It's a great read. And if the guy reads his own book, I always get that version. And Jackie does the audio version of his own book, which is worth the price of admission. Artie Lang does the intro to the book.
He's such a good guy. And I was not looking forward to sitting there and reading my own book. But then I realized there's no pressure. You can't ad lib. You got to read exactly what's there. So there's no pressure. And everybody at Audible were huge fans. So for 3 days, it was just like heavenly. It was fantastic fun, So, and people say, it's so great. I listened to your book. It's like having you on the radio again.
I know. It sounds like you're listening to a radio show. That's why I enjoyed it so much.
I tried to not laugh too much. I don't think I laughed too much, but there's a snicker here and there.
There's a few in there, Jackie. There's a few in there where you're cracking yourself up. I mean, but the book is intimate, and the book is also intimate about show business details. And the book is intimate about a guy making himself out of nothing into something, which is really the story of the book. Creating something out of nothing from a schlub to a star, which would have been the alternative title.
A lot of luck, a little bit of talent, a little bit of luck, and you got to have an equal amount of both. You can have all the
But you
talent in
had
the world if you're not
so
lucky.
much perseverance and so much self-promotion. In other words, everything. This is just my takeaway from it. You've been self-promoting yourself for so long, with the talent and with the backup, as a one-man band. I mean, I know Nancy helped a lot when you were
She did
married.
so much. But
She did
I
a
was
lot.
already 30. I had
Yeah,
to hustle.
that's what
I
I
wasn't
meant. Yeah.
18. You know, I was
No,
old.
no,
You know,
no. You're already older by then. But everything you did by yourself. It's an American, if I may say so, it's an American success story. Because
it's so funny because the guy Carl Capriolio came from Olio Records. He's a huge Stern fan. And he called me up and said, listen, I'd really like to release your next CD. And I told Nancy, well, all right. So I recorded my next CD and sent him the master tape. And all of a sudden, one day, we got a big poster for the CD. And I looked at her. This was the first thing to promote us ever that we didn't do. Somebody
wow,
else was actually helping us. And we were like,
wow.
wow, could you imagine what we could do with a little help? You know?
Right. I
And that
mean, you
was,
were going to Governors from the Stern. I mean, you were doing nights at Governors while doing the Stern show, and then Chuckles,
oh,
and I mean, you were doing so much at the same exact time.
Club Benet, and I would
Oh,
go to,
Club Benet.
I do a weekend in Las Vegas. Like I'd get up at 4:30 in the morning, drive to Manhattan, and then go to the airport. And in the 90s, there were no direct flights to Las Vegas after 12 o'clock noon. So I'd
Right.
have to fly to Phoenix and connect and fly to Las Vegas, move into my room, and my show was at 10 o'clock, which means it was 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd been up since 4:30, and I'd do a show at 10 o'clock, which was 1 o'clock. And of course, I was under total pressure to have a huge party after the show, which I have no problem with.
The pressure must have been intense. How did you even survive?
Holy crap! But it was the most fun in the fucking,
Were you
everybody,
consider yourself a workaholic or ambitious or what? I mean, it seems like you have. What's your take on yourself?
I
mean,
guess
was your father a hard worker? Did you learn it from him, or?
Well, he definitely had the holic part.
Yeah,
but
that's funny.
No, I just.
I mean, what was your motivation? I mean, did you want to be famous or make money or what?
I don't know. I didn't start out to. I learned the guitar to meet girls. We had a band to meet girls.
Right.
We had a band in college to meet girls. I went into comedy because it was time to do something, and band music wasn't going to work out. If I wanted to eat, all I had was these jokes, so I just started telling the jokes. I had no intention of being a comedian. I had no intention of ever getting on the radio. It was all so unbelievably happenstance.
Here's what I would put on your epitaph. He wanted to make people laugh, and he succeeded. Jackie the Jokeman. I swear to God, that's what I would put. He wanted to make people laugh, and he succeeded. Am I close to that?
That is somehow it's the true story, the whole story. And I finally went to see a therapist for a little while because I wanted to find out what is it that makes you want to make people laugh. Like if I go down to the post office and make Larry behind the counter, if I make him laugh, it puts a little spring in my step. It makes no sense, but that's just me. I can't not tell jokes, and I enjoy it. And finally, at some point, I said, if it feels good, just do it. Who cares why? What the hell? If you eat something and you don't like it, don't eat anymore. If you eat something you like it, eat some more of it.
The simple lessons. The simple lessons of Jackie Martling, ladies and gentlemen. Here he is with his favorite monkey. Who is this monkey here, Jackie?
That is Zippy the chimp from the Howdy Doody show. How old are you?
Oh my God. He lives in the Screen Actors Guild nursing home, apparently, out in Encino. This monkey has better benefits than you and I.
That is not a monkey. That is a chimpanzee.
Stop yelling at me. I'm not an ornithologist.
In the early 50s, Zippy was an important part of the Howdy Doody show.
Right.
And when I was going to college, when I first moved off campus, a couple of good friends from New York City came out to live with me. And Joe was working construction. And he came home one day and said, Jackie, I was in a ditch. I was digging in a ditch, and this pretty girl came by and said, hey, I'm going to bring you lunch tomorrow. So she brought him lunch tomorrow. He brought him lunch, and they hit it off, and they went back to New York City and got married. And she always wanted to be in show business. And they hooked up this guy, Lee something, in the late 40s. He was going to college, and he got the bright idea that he's going to get a chimpanzee and train it and use it to make money. And he used it to make money, and he got on the Howdy Doody show for X amount of years, and then he got tired of it, okay? Mm-hmm. So he had a home in Freeport, and the bottom half of his house was chimpanzee-proof, and he would hire a couple to be Zippy's parents.
Wow.
And they would take Zippy around the country in a Cadillac, which was Zippy-proof, and he'd roller skate at supermarket openings or whatever he could do.
Well,
they made a lot of money.
His career ended because he was an anti-Semite, and William Morris fired him. I mean, I've never heard such nasty stuff said by a chimp about the Jews in my life, Jackie. It was unfair to us.
You've never been to my house. But, But the monkey was so great, and they take him around, and you have to picture this scene. It's 1971. My band has decided to play in Cape Cod. We didn't book anything, and we all come out, and we're at my parents' house in East Norwich on Long Island. We're in the dining room. It's got octagon windows. It's a beautiful spring day. All the windows are open, and we're playing Jefferson Airplane and Rolling Stones, and we're rocking and rolling. And all the hippies from the neighborhood, this is 1971. They're all long-haired. They're all smoking pot. They're all drinking. They're all tripping. It's a being, all right? And Joe and Debbie pull into the driveway, and Zippy the chimp gets out. These hippies, their brains were melting, and Zippy goes over to the patio, and he's roller skating around the patio, and he's playing hide and seek with these hippies. I mean, to this day, I'm sure those people, if they try and tell that story to people, I'm sure they roll their eyes like that's bullshit,
Well, let me ask the people in the chat. There's hundreds of people there. How many people out there would like to see Jackie come back for Jackie Martling Part 2, The Reckoning, where he will go into details about other stories which are not in his book, which will be in his second memoir? Let me see the hands of people who want Jackie to come back.
Mark, when I wrote my book, I wrote enough for 2 books. I have a whole
That's what I figured. Yeah, there's got to be a second book. Yes, please. Okay, they want you to come back. Yes.
I'll print it up and come on your show to peddle it.
Okay,
right?
Yes. We're going to sell a lot of books. For some reason, my audiences read books, and they buy a lot of books from this channel and my other channel. You will great. Sell books. Jack and Uncle Bearing Bodies yesterday. That was great. Thank you, Just a Girl.
And who was the best looking? The judges, the women that were in there, judged that I was better looking than Howard, and he was pissed off.
Absolutely.
He was pissed off.
Do you think he's thin-skinned in certain areas?
No, I think he's thin-skinned in every area. But he's really a nice guy. He really is. People say, is he an asshole? Yeah, but not for the reasons you think. I mean,
right.
He's been 6'5" since 7th grade. Now, I'm a little guy. I can run around and break balls. When you're 6'5", you got to act like an adult all the time. Yeah. And it must have made his life, it didn't help that he had a shark sticking out of his nose.
Well, he was also like a white Kareem Abdul-Jabbar growing up in Roosevelt.
Yeah, so
that must have been difficult too. I mean, you're out in Mineola somewhere, East Norwich, wherever the fuck you're at, but he's in the heart of a ghetto there in Roosevelt.
Well, I don't think it was anywhere near as rough as he makes it out. It's funny because Fred Norris had 2 fathers that beat the hell out of him. Wow. I had a father that beat me with a strap. And meanwhile, Howard had a father that owned a recording studio in Manhattan. Yeah. And he took the family into the recording studio on a Sunday. And he's showing them the equipment. And at one point, Howard must have touched something. And his father said, "Shut up and sit down." and he played that endlessly like he had been
Wow.
tortured as a child.
It's in the movie. It's in Private
And
Parts a bunch.
And me and Fred would look at each other like, he doesn't know what having
No.
it rough is, you know.
Yeah.
But
I got the strap myself. We all got the strap, Jackie.
Right. I give him all the credit in the world. I really do.
Yeah. I mean, he's made, again, an American success story of a guy who came from literally not as nothing as you, but somewhat nothing, and made himself
people used to ask me to describe Howard, and I say he came up from nothing and brought it with him.
All right.
All right.
So are you still? You're not still sleeping with Robin anymore, I presume. That broke up. You broke up with her?
No. How much could I take?
No, I mean, she had to have the breast reduction surgery. That probably turned you off quite a bit.
Very dark. I will give her credit. We went to mornings. We had been on mornings for a month or two. And one day she came in and said, Howard, I have to tell you something. I had a sex dream about Jackie last night. And she really had. She wasn't.
Wow.
The show was 100% honest. Nobody made anything.
I bought her book, and 90% of it is about Malcolm X, and it's like one chapter on the Stern Show.
Yeah, she's a nut. So she had a sex dream about me. You know what? I think what started is I came in and said I really had a really visceral, a really realistic sex dream about her. And I told everybody that, but they weren't shocked, but it was the truth. And then she came in a couple of weeks later and said, Howard, I had a sex dream about Jackie. And I was like, it was just crazy, just wonderful,
Ladies and gentlemen, Jackie Martling one time.
All right.
For Jackie Martling,
I'm going to leave your audience.
Believe me, I got to sell some crap. We're going to have you back on the show. We're going to pick it up where you left off. Remember, you're in your dream at this point in the episode. For episode 2, you're banging Robin in your dream. That's where we're going to pick it up next time.
So the guy's wife says, honey, I just shaved my cooch in the shower. You know what that means? He said, yeah. Now the drain's going to be clogged up again.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, Jackie Martling one time. Thank you, Jackie. Jackie, thank you for coming by. I will email you. I'm going to give you the interview.
Not the audience, especially you guys with vaginas. Jokeland@AOL.com.
Jokeland@AOL.com. Get the book. Also, support Jackie with his various 922 wine. Just keep calling the number. Don't forget.
Mark, 5 minutes ago, I got a message from my iPad that we're out of juice. Not only that, we didn't lose.
You're out of Jews? You're out of Jews on Long Island?
Never out of Jews on Long Island. And we didn't lose the internet connection once.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. By the way, we used to go to Bayville every once in a while just to see how the other half lived when I was in Amityville. So it's really nice where you are. Don't move. Don't leave your wonderful abode there. And
I live 1.5 miles and 12 tax brackets away from Billy Joel.
Right. Well, there's going to be a vacancy in his house eventually, so maybe you can move over there. Ladies and gentlemen,
nice.
Jackie Martling one time, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up.
Thank you so much.
To the king of comedy, the ultimate, the joke man, Jackie, the joke man, Martling, always with quotation marks around Jackie. Okay. We got to do something here with this coffee because Jackie needs coffee. We all need coffee. Let's take a look at this product right now because I'm drinking this coffee, which is right in back of me right here. This is the tribal coffee that the Indians that used to live on Long Island before Jackie's relatives took it over. This was made by the Long Island Indians, and it's the Western Highlands of Long Island. This coffee is extremely tasty. What I did was I made, those cinnamon bun rolls. Here it is. It's tribal coffee. I made those cinnamon bun rolls and I had a cup of this. To me, I know this sounds crazy, but it's better than cocaine. The two things together. 10% off with the code Mark G. Tribal coffee. It's made by the king of all Biltong, or he works with the people who are the pygmies down in Papua New Guinea, who in the volcanic ash of Papua New Guinea somehow grow these coffee beans to make this coffee and ship it here. I don't know if it's slave labor or it's pygmy labor or whatever it is, but I really recommend this coffee if you want to try it. 10% off with the secret code Mark G. The code is there for you to use, and I would try just one bag. Yes, AOL still exists, and this coffee is great to surf the web. The tribal coffee will give you the energy to listen to all of Jackie the Joke Man's dirty jokes. So get a bag of coffee, get some of Jackie the Joke Man's albums, or even look at Jackie online. There's plenty of video of Jackie doing his dirty jokes, and I think you'll really enjoy it. I hope you enjoy Jackie the Joke Man. Next week, we're going to do a deep dive on the late friend of mine that we mentioned today, Gilbert Gottfried, who we'll get into Gilbert's private life, which I was part of next week. And after that, we're going to do Richard Lewis, another old friend of mine who passed away. Both these guys will not be on the show. I think somebody asked me why Kinnison or Carlin wasn't on the show. Somebody in the comment section. Both of these people coming up in the next 2 weeks, unlike Jackie the Joke Man, will not be on the show. These will be deep dives into their secret lives. Gilbert, who died of a rare cardiac genetic thing, and Richard Lewis, who we'll get into what happened with Richard Lewis the week after that. And we've got different people coming up. Dave Rubin's coming up talking about comedy and his take on stand-up. So it's all going to be pop culture, but mostly stand-up comedy and a lot of the greats who have passed on. We're going to do Dangerfield eventually, obviously Rodney. We're going to get into people like Woody Allen. We're going to do, obviously, Lenny Bruce at some point. We're going to do almost all the greats. We're going to get into Robin. We're going to get into people that I'm looking to deep dive on that I don't know about. So it's kind of like a real trip for myself to learn about these comics and their private lives. So until next Wednesday, I'll see you then. And remember these products and pick them up, and also to like and subscribe. This is apparently extremely important in the podcast universe that Jackie and I don't know anything about. But if you subscribe to the show, this really helps the algorithm, who is a cousin of the logarithm. And if you like the show, this apparently helps it. So if you could just push those buttons, I think it would really help us out to the people who are left, who haven't left yet. Maybe we should do it at the beginning. Well, more people are here. But okay, I got to go to dinner. I'm in the mountains, and I got to go into town and do some shopping in this tiny little town that I'm in here. So we'll see you. I'll be on the show Friday. We're going to talk about the events that happened today on Friday on America's Untold Stories.